morning. Just keep in mind that it did snow a little more last night. Roads may be a little slick in some areas, so it's best to proceed with caution. Just remember to be safe. Wear those seatbelts. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by Fernando's.
Love Languages, presented by Fernando's. For spending quality time.
Let's go out and get tacos.
Come and feel the love at Fernando's, 75th and Pacific, 114th and Dodge, and fernandosomaha.com.
My passion for the unborn comes from my own unplanned pregnancy. Dan and I have been together for over 45 years. We have 3 of the most beautiful children. My name is Marlis Patma. I'm the former president of Iowa Right to Life, and I'm supporting Nikki Haley for president. I've heard Nikki's story. She speaks with such clarity about the importance of life because for her, it's personal.
I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children.
Nikki's a sister in Christ. She's pro-life. She has compassion and strength. I want a president with moral clarity who can restore our country, our pride, and our purpose. For my children and yours, please support Nikki Haley for president.
I'm Nikki Haley, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Nikki Haley for president.
I'm Taylor Bisciotti with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. A stunner in Seattle as the Seahawks announced Pete Carroll is out as head coach after 14 seasons. He will, however, remain with the team as an advisor.
This isn't about me being the head coach. It's about this organization being successful and being on course for the long haul of it as well. And I realize that. I mean, I'm about as old as you can get in this business. And there's coming a time they got to make some decisions. And so moving towards the future, if there's some way that I can add something to them down the road, we'll see what happens.
Carroll is the all-time winningest head coach in franchise history, which included a Super Bowl title in 2014. Meantime, Raiders interim head coach Antonio Pierce received a request from the Titans Wednesday to interview for their head coach opening. The Giants and defensive coordinator Wink Martindale agreed to part ways after 2 seasons. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
Jackson Hewitt has a plan to get your tax refund fast. With a buck here, buck there. Here a buck, there a buck, everywhere a buck.
You don't have to wait weeks for your tax refund. Get money sooner with a no-fee refund advance loan at Jackson Hewitt.
On this loan, there's a money today guarantee. E-I-E-I-O.
Don't settle for chicken feed. Get fast bucks at Jackson Hewitt today. No-fee refund advance loans by Republic Bank offered to eligible clients. Money today guarantee if approved for a loan on a prepaid card. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Don't miss this week's Zone Deal.
This week's half-off deal is Kops. Receive 2 $25 gift vouchers for just $25. Kops makes delicious pizza, fresh salads, and tasty charred wings. For the basic menu, click CopsPizza.com. And for the extended menu, visit them at Shadow Lake Town Center, 180th and Center, and the newly reopened 72nd and Jones locations.
Zone deals go fast. 9 a.m. Friday, 1620thezone.com.
Your Omaha Maverick hockey team is coming off a tournament win at the Desert Hockey Classic, and they are red hot. The Mavs start their 2024 home campaign against the top 10 ranked Denver Pioneers January 19th and 20th. And the Maverick men's basketball team takes on North Dakota on January 11th and North Dakota State on January 13th. Let's pack the Baxter. Get your tickets now. Call the box office at 402-554-MAVS or by going to omavs.com/tics.
The Kansas City Chiefs playoff run starts right now.
Stick in the pocket to throw. Big chase and he's sacked. Who got it? Chris Jones!
Got him! Saturday night at GEHA Field at Arrowhead. The Chiefs host the Miami Dolphins on Wild Card Saturday. Pre-game starts at 6 on your home for Kansas City Chiefs football.
Chiefs Dolphins AFC wildcard game Saturday night at 6 on 1620 The Zone.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know? Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babel. Babel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun. Fun isn't hard. Right. Babel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks. Even better.
Since Babel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babel doesn't take long.
And with Babel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
Start learning a new language today. Go to Babel.com. That's BABBEL.com. Babel.com.
Roofing, siding, and gutters. Make the right call with the rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard.
1620 The Zone.
It's been an honor and a thrill to be part of this program, and I've loved every minute of it. And you've watched me love it. It's the end of the season. I'm supposed to be, go lay on a cot somewhere. I ain't feeling like that. And there's what's coming. I don't know. I got no idea, and I really don't care right now. But I do. I'm excited about it because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to study. There's some great discoveries that are going to come our way. And as my all-time mentor, Bud Grant, said, not in so many words, there's rivers to wade, there's waves to catch, and there's mountains to hike. And it wasn't exactly how Bud said it, but I get it. And that's some cool stuff that we're going to do here. And I look forward to all that.
Well, Paul, it is for college football, it's one of those days I think we'll probably all remember. The greatest run, certainly in modern football history, over. Nick Saban retiring, telling his team today, this is something he's done the last few years, as I think after the season, he and his wife, Terry, have gotten away and assessed where they are with their lives, where Nick is with his career. Was not something that he did for the first time this year. And soon after they got back from the Rose Bowl, they went down to their place in Florida, talked about it, came back, thought about it. I don't think anybody knew, I don't think anybody really knew what was going to happen. I mean, you talk to people at Alabama over the last few days, it's been business as usual. But Nick is old school, as you well know, and the first people he wanted to know were his players. And he talked to his players, he told them. And I think it's, again, something that a lot of people around that program thought there might be a chance of it happening, but I don't think anybody saw it coming in the last couple of days.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
All right, here we go on a Thursday morning. Hello, 1620 Zoners. Do some radio. The calm outside. Another major winter storm, followed by San Diego Chargers, Cincinnati Bengal playoff game in the 80s cold.
I watched that game of the week on YouTube yesterday.
Now I got to get you a hobby.
I know. It was
Gotta
cold.
get you a hobby.
I was like, there's nothing going on in sports today. I'll watch this. And then I was like, okay, just wait 30 minutes.
Safe to say, boys, a monumental day yesterday. Pete Carroll out. Nick Saban retires. And Stephen A. Smith called Jason Whitlock a bitch. I mean, come on. What are we talking about?
The ladder's the lead right there, too. I've been big enough if Pete Carroll, if it was just a Pete Carroll, and then get the Nick Saban news as well. And anytime you get a little bit of the you get the analyst on analyst crime there too, and going as far as calling the B word. Yeah,
I don't
know.
It's an active day. I don't know that I've ever called another guy a bitch.
I remember when Jerry Glanville called Jack Pardee that after a game when I was a kid.
I just know that it's not a term of affection.
Yeah, I think I have in like a moment of like rage.
Another guy?
Yeah, maybe not to his face, which I'm not.
Was it Aaron
I'm
Rodgers?
I'm not happy about. Probably.
It's the only way that you can say that to another guy is you have to first put little.
Yes.
Before that?
Yes, and that's what I
Okay.
did. I said, what a little. Yeah.
But what a day yesterday. It was going to be a nice little normal Wednesday. Going to watch a little college basketball, see if the snow was melting, counting down how many days before I'm at Warner Park or sitting in the bleachers at Wrigley. And the next thing you know, Pete Carroll is out. And like, whoa, okay. What are the Seahawks going to do for a quarterback? Because at 72, he's their best quarterback.
Yeah.
And then the big one, the big one is we knew this day would come. We just didn't know when. Nick Saban, the GOAT, which you don't even have to have a debate about being the GOAT of college football coaching.
Actually, this concludes the debate.
Retires, steps down. And now the silly season is in full swing in college football, and there are conflicting reports of if Dan Lanning is in Tuscaloosa or if he is not. So we get media on media crime. We're tracking planes. And I laugh at I laugh at the newbies that come to coaching searches that think that coaches are just going to fly into the normal airport and like walk through the student union to meet with the athletic director. But what a day yesterday. We will have a college football season in 2024 that, first of all, will be unlike any college football season we have ever experienced. And now you will have a football season period that does not have Pete Carroll or Nick Saban on the sidelines, two guys who had a major moment, either for the good or the bad, in college and pro football.
Two future analysts at Nebraska, perhaps under Matt Rule, to go with Dana. All coming to Lincoln.
Get off the message board.
Maybe analyst is right for Saban, but I think that could be on the television side. The Saban part of it, I think you're right. I think we knew, and even this year there had been a little bit of chatter about it. But what was so odd about yesterday, and by all accounts, it sounded like it was business as usual. It sounded like there was really no hitch in the giddy up when it came to Nick Saban's typical off-season checklist and the things that he's doing, and at the rate that he's doing them. They were interviewing for special teams coach and other open positions on the coaching staff, and they had a scheduled meeting already, and it's almost like it just somehow kind of crystallized. Now, I know he was, because a lot of people had mentioned he wasn't on the national championship broadcast for ESPN, which he has been in the past. And so people were wondering, well, was that sort of a telltale sign? And I guess, there's been times that he has missed when it's been a quicker turnaround.
But didn't the guy that clip
Dan Lanning
open is the clip? Well, Dan Lanning was.
Yeah.
The clip. So after they lost in the Rose Bowl, they went to their home in Florida.
Yes.
Now with I don't know if that was Chris Lowe or not.
Yeah,
it was
Chris. And that's where he was over the weekend too. And I think they just isn't that a recent purchase too?
Yeah.
So
I think if you recently purchase property in Florida, the time is coming that you are, especially in South Florida, that you are probably retired.
Well, I don't know. He's had property in Florida for a while. Him and Jimbo Fisher have shared a beach house, but he built a rather large.
There's a reality show
place. Yeah, there's a lot in what happened yesterday, and here's one thing that we can relate around here. When you have a GOAT that kind of out of the blue retires, and the connection to Tom Osborne. Like Alabama, this had been like speculated throughout the year. Some people are like, this might be it. Or we're getting towards the end. I mean, the guy is 72 years old. So there was discussion about that. Covering it in 96 to 97, there was no real hint that T.O. was going to retire because he was at the height of his profession and they were on a 60-3 roll. Here's where we can relate. And Alabama fans, you can come in. This is a safe place because we all can relate. Because I saw the narrative last night in the media that were covering this from afar is they're almost laughing at the Alabama fans that were very somber. Man, you don't get it. You do not get it. It was the same way around here. If anybody recalls that December day at that press conference in South Stadium when T.O. announced his retirement, and you've got football players that are in the room that are in tears, and how like just a thud day that was, and you were like, whoa, what happens next?
Yeah.
I'm okay. Alabama fans, You can put the little Debbies at the statue. You can put flowers. You can be sad. You can wonder what's going to happen next. Is it all over? You can do that because when you have a legend that reaches the end of their stay and they step down, that might be the only coach you know in your lifetime. I remember for a lot of people, T.O. was the only coach that you had known as a Nebraska fan. There's a lot of Alabama fans that have no idea who Dennis Franchione is. Okay, Mike Price is. Okay, Mel Moore. Okay, you've only had Nick Saban. Yep. So it's okay to be somber and I know this. I don't recall it as much when T.O. stepped down, just because I was probably oblivious to it because it was all about T.O. is you see a lot of the other fan bases that are celebrating. That shows you how one of the marks on Saban's resume of how good he is that there are other fan bases that are celebrating the GOAT retiring.
They rolled Toomer's corner yesterday.
Hey, that might be one of the ultimate tributes.
Guys, Bill Belichick is out, by the way. That just broke.
Why didn't he do it last night?
it just came over like 2 minutes ago. So as we're talking about Pete Carroll and Nick Saban, literally in the midst of you talking about Tom Osborne, I saw something flash up on my phone and said, Bill Belichick
this is perfect now. This sets up what I was going to get to a little bit later. This plays right into it.
What a Thursday.
So the official thing is parted ways. I don't think that Robert Kraft would fire Bill Belichick.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but parting ways is a good way to describe it. This is what this sets up now. You guys watch the Muppets, right?
Very, very long time ago,
the two old guys that were up in the balcony?
Yeah.
My heroes.
That is Belichick and Saban on a new podcast sponsored by Little Debbie's. That's what it should be.
Reviewing movies.
Hey, this is so you have some coaches here. I mean, this is just adds to yesterday. You have two GOATs, two absolute GOATs. Now, Belichick may still coach. Saban is done.
Yes.
Pete Carroll is done. Even though, gosh, I still think Pete Carroll at 72 could coach a couple of more years.
He's more energized than most people in their 50s.
He's younger than us.
Yeah, but I think there's just like the Vrabel situation, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the building that we don't know about. Power struggle, or maybe I think in Seattle they're getting ready to sell the team, so they don't want to hand the owner that difficult decision of what do I do with Pete Carroll. But back to Saban. It's okay, Alabama fans. We were the same way back here. It's also okay to wonder, oh my God, is this over? Because we did the same thing. We did absolutely the same thing. There's a lot of discussion about coaches today in college football because the landscape is changing rapidly. You got NIL, you got portal, you got parity. You can't hog all of the talent. Did Saban do a Coach K? And Mike Krzyzewski, when he stepped down to Duke and he retired to Duke, he was like, you know what? I'm not prepared to go through the new age of college athletics.
Jay Wright.
Yeah. And I thought he did a great job of it for a while.
Well, yeah. But, he saw the writing on the wall, and you got to have, you got to be built a little bit different to handle college athletics these days. But I think it's also okay to say about a guy like Saban, because I think Pete Carroll was pushed out. Saban can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to say, because I'm a couple of decades away from retirement. To say, man, I'm 72. I've had a hell of a life, and I want to go out on top. And that's what I'm doing it for.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to say, guys, I'm this age. It's okay to retire. A lot of people retire well before 72.
Yeah. And
also
obviously money's not an issue.
And also go out on your own terms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole part about Nick Saban is it was always going to be, I think it was always going to be a shock. Even if it was at 75, it was always going to be somewhat of a surprise just because of how much he's meant to the game and what we've known Nick Saban to be. So I could never imagine that Bama would succumb to, say, a 5-7 season and you'd be like, okay, clearly the writing's on the wall. It's passed him by. He needs to step down. That was never going to be the reality because I think even on like the worst years of Alabama football, you were under Nick Saban, you were probably never going to see anything less than an 8 or 9 win season. And that's pretty low. So I think yesterday it probably, I mean, initially there was the shock, but then you look back on everything that he accomplished, his age, a lot of the things that he cited to his team yesterday as he was announcing this. And it does make sense. And there are very few people in coaching period, not just college football, but in coaching period that can, well, first of all, they have that resume. He's one of one, but that can honestly look at what they've tried to do in an ever-changing world, a rapidly changing world of college football, and know that there were probably a lot of things that he was uncomfortable with. There were a lot of things that he knew that he was going to have to adjust to even more, and understood that at 72 years old, that's probably going to take a lot more youthful approach that he probably didn't have anymore. And all you have to do is look at what you've built and what you would be turning the keys over to whoever the next person is, and feel pretty damn good about what you have there and what Alabama could be. It's not an enviable position on whoever takes that job because of the standard you're going to have.
I'm going to fight back on anybody that says that everybody said, well, why would you take?
I wouldn't say why would you take it. I think it's not going to be an easy task though, because of the outside perception of who you are replacing.
Well, that you'll never be Nick.
Right.
But the fact of, oh man, I don't want to do it. I want to be the next guy that replaces Saban. No, man, you got some chops. You believe in what you do, and you look at a program that's got some really good infrastructure. Yeah, you're not Nick, and you always be not Nick. Man, I'd step up. I'd step up and do it. But there's a part of when Saban retires that you can enjoy life. I mean, he's only 8 wins from 300. Right?
Yeah.
He could have hung around and in his sleep got 8 last year.
Would have got it. Yeah.
He decided to step away. Man, kudos to you. Kudos to you because you can. And I believe that he has his health. But you can now go and enjoy life. And I think the landscape, yes, but I think even more, man, I want to go and enjoy time away from the daily grind of being a college football coach that's got to feed the beast continuously. I have mad respect for that. And the fact that you can go out on your own terms, that you didn't have like a down season where you go 8-4,
right?
And people are like, he's lost his fastball.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like Tom Landry. You could say, you know what? We didn't win a championship in the last 3 years.
Right. It was always going to be a shock because of that, because that was never going to happen with Nick Saban. I don't think you were ever going to see that team all of a sudden be a 500 team. Not under Nick Saban. I don't care if he was 76 years old. It wasn't going to happen. So there was always going to be that initial whoa because of how much we've been inundated with Nick Saban and his success and how rare it is with how much college football has changed, and he was able to change with it and still remain on top. I don't know if that could ever be duplicated. For a long time, and ironically, it was Bear Bryant in Alabama, but we always, growing up, we always heard about the greatest coaches and the ones that won multiple national championships, and obviously in a different time. But for a lot of people, this is always going to be the gold standard, and it's hard to imagine, again, and how competitive college football is and how different it is, if anybody will even come close to that feat, because it is just so rare. That's why I think it was always going to be a stunner no matter what, because he was never going to go out to where, okay, you could really see the regression. You could really see that he just kind of had lost his touch. That wasn't going to happen under Nick Saban.
Yeah, see, I think college football is at a loss today, and a major loss.
Oh, I agree.
Because in this day and age of what's going on in college athletics, over the last 3 or 4 years, Nick Saban has been a voice of reason. I know that's wild to say, but, Saban has made a transition where if you hated the guy because he won too much, you're like, all of a sudden, well, he seems to be a little bit likable. When he's interviewed, he's not as terse. He looks into the camera. He shows up on game day, and he looks super, super comfortable.
Very
thoughtful. But what he has become, yes, that's a great word, Jimmy. He has become the voice of reason in college football, of alerting you to things that are going on that are warning signs, and basically saying, if you don't fix them, we're going to take advantage of them, and we're going to step on you. There's really nobody in the game that has the cachet of the GOAT who can say, guys, watch out for this. This isn't good for the game, because anybody that says that, they're now considered whining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everybody's like, I'm in it for myself. I thought Saban towards the end of his career was not only in it first for Alabama, but for the rest of the sport. So I think the sport takes a loss with that, but it's a sport that, wow, talk about being upended on what's going to go on, because there's going to be a domino to fall when Alabama hires the not Nick, and then whoever that school is, they have to hire the next guy. And then, it goes on and on because there's no internal candidate at Alabama. But Saban and Belichick. Well, Saban put out a release yesterday, and I guess his family, I doubt him because I can't imagine him on It's a Small World, are going to Disney World.
Well, he can now. He has the time.
Yeah, no, I think about 10 minutes on that ride, and you're right back in college football. I've never understood.
I can help somebody.
I've never understood why that ride is so popular, because you go on that ride, and that song never leaves your head.
Oh.
And you see the little puppets dancing around, and it's always cold in the boat. But that's like one of the more popular rides there. So the family is going there. I can't imagine that Nick is going there. Eventually, he'll show up on ESPN.
Yes.
But will Belichick have a presser?
No.
Because that's...
I wouldn't be shocked if he did.
I
wouldn't be shocked.
But he likes going...
Yeah, but the story... Now, you got to be careful because he's still in play to be employed next year. I would like to know the story of how this all unfolded, that you had a meeting on Monday. It's Thursday morning, and the announcement that you are parting ways. Did you have another meeting, or, which I think would be a bad business plan if you're fully in on this, you were going to possibly work with Belichick and modernize the football operations and let somebody take over the offense, because he can still coach defense. Then Mike Vrabel became available.
Yeah.
And that threw something into play, because the story now out of Nashville is one of the reasons why the owner, who I feel bad for Titan fans, because they could have gotten some for Vrabel, and they said, no, it's too complicated, too much work.
Hey, take them.
Feel bad, Titan fans. I love your city. Nashville's fantastic. Is Vrabel's induction into the Ring of Honor in New England. The owner did not like how much Vrabel was a Patriot that day.
Literally played for them. He won Super Bowls with them.
It's your day.
But
it's your accomplishment with that organization.
When he became available, did that change the thought process? I mean, that's what I would like
to know. Well, and Belichick said he was open to relinquishing some power.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was true, or, hey, I want to save my legacy.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, I mean, all of our fathers, and even us that are getting a little bit older, we're a little bit stubborn to change.
Okay.
Now the really, really good ones, the GOATs, when they get a little bit older, they adapt to the surroundings and they change. And even though it's difficult because we don't like change, I don't know if that was, I got to say that because, you know what, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, yeah, I haven't done this for a while. Yeah, you've convinced me. We have to modernize our football operations. But whether you were a fan of Saban, a fan of Belichick, you hated both, you hated their teams, you hate the way the sports are right now, you just hate life. I got to include those people.
It'll warm up eventually.
There are people that are out there. It's like a monster day.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
Saban retires, Belichick is out, Carroll is out.
Man,
I mean,
if you wanted to news dump,
24 years of Bill Belichick, 17 years.
Yeah, if you're going to have a scandal, last night was the night to announce it.
Yeah, it'd be like maybe the 7th or 8th thing on there. I don't know, 24 years. I feel like Bill Belichick, he just at times surprises you. It wouldn't shock me if he was given that opportunity to speak to the media. And it wouldn't shock me if there were requests where he decided to abide and have that. I mean, it's 24 years. Like if this was, even
I can see him being candid,
even
in a good way.
Yeah. Like I could too. And that sounds crazy because he's very rarely done that outside of the building or on most platforms, unless there was like a documentary or something. But I just think 24 years, just like we're talking with Nick Saban, when you associate success in college football and you think of Alabama success, it starts and ends with Nick Saban. That's the face of it. Yeah, the Tom Brady part of it which I think we've all kind of moved on from with New England and Tom Brady. So the lasting image of that reign of terror that New England had was Bill Belichick. And now, as of this morning, they've moved on from Bill Belichick. I feel like if he wants to, that he will be given that opportunity. And there's part of me that thinks that he will maybe address that, because it was a big part of football. Like the guy is a football savant, much like the guy that he coached with that also is no longer with his current team and is actually retired, and Nick Saban. I feel like when the time comes for those guys, whether they're moving on for good or they're moving on to the next thing, and they've been with a place and people hold them in such high regard, Bill Belichick knows that. There's part of me that feels like he's going to, I don't want to say set the record straight, but he's going to want to have his own version of a farewell, and to be able to kind of explain maybe where it didn't go so well here in the last couple of years and what his plans are. I guarantee you people in New England want to know, people in the Boston area, they want to know about that.
What if I would have told you last year that Matt Eberflus would keep his job in 2024 and Belichick would be out?
Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick would be out, but Matt Eberflus would still be a head football coach.
Would you have quit being a Bears fan?
I would have. I absolutely
There's
would.
our new contest for February. Find Nick a new team.
Hey, but they fired their OC, so it's all good.
All right.
Changes.
Welcome in, everybody. This shapes up. I mean, Belichick is out before 7. Now I'm starting to see, though, some reporters have changed it to reportedly. Hey.
Oh,
these situations got to be careful, because look at the Oregon TV station, the sportscaster. If you haven't seen the video, it's all over Twitter, was pretty confident last night that Dan Lanning was in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, that takes some stones to say that.
Then there were a couple of Alabama, like, quote-unquote insiders, but one guy that the Alabama fans vouch for that he's been pretty spot on. He said that's not true. Can you imagine if you are that Oregon sportscaster, you went on and said Lanning is in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dan Lanning is a really good option because of his DNA to be the guy that is not Nick. But think about that guy if that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And he put himself out there and people ran with it, but it becomes the battle of, that's not true. Lanning is not here. But it makes sense, because if I'm Alabama, you've got Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are
already
contacting Alabama players, allegedly.
Yep.
You've got, I'm sure that Tim Beckham's going to come back into college football and load up a plane and fly to Tuscaloosa to try and, steal some Alabama players away. They've got to act quickly because the portal is now open for 30 days. Yep. So I would think Greg Byrne acts quickly, and in 72 hours they have a replacement just because they have to.
Yes.
Or they're going to be in an odd spot. But if that guy in Oregon is wrong, good
thing they're in Oregon.
They don't come down on the meteorologists when they're off. But could you that guy is going to be canceled in Oregon if none of that is true.
They better hope
that's and now if he hit a home run, good on him, because he has good sources.
Yep, and he was the first.
But if he misses,
And a much smaller scale, we were having this exact conversation when we thought Tony White was out. Remember the back and forth?
Well,
that
there's
was taking
replacements
place
now available if he decided to leave.
On the the company on company crime, which was great.
The guy did influence the betting odds. Mm-hmm. At one time, they were taken down. Last night, they were back up, and Lanning is 3-1. For some reason, Dabo is 4-1. Are they getting rid of NIL in college football?
Right. The Dabo one, for people who think, well, this was always going to be Dabo's job. Have you seen his resistance to change?
What's the guy in Spartanburg? Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that the Dabo Sweeney one, I get it, especially when they were on top. That always felt like, okay, when Nick Saban calls it quits, it's going to be Dabo, given his ties. But there's evidence right there in front of your face. If you're an Alabama fan, you don't want that.
Yeah, no. The first call is to Kirby Smart. The thing in this whole,
you make him tell you no.
The whole process of replacing Saban, and Saban probably didn't spring this on Greg Byrne, and he probably has a suggestion or two, is the most important thing is the second call. Like Bill Byrne here replacing T.O., he was not involved. Like Greg Byrne, I think, is a little bit more involved, but it's all about your second call. Because your first call is probably going to turn you down because you're going to swing for the fences. And a Kirby Smart is going to be like, I think the Georgia job's better than Alabama. I think the Texas job's better than Alabama. I think Saban made the Alabama job better. And that's not like a hot take. That's what happens when you have a GOAT. But your second call is the most important one because that's the person you narrow in on. And maybe that is Dan Lanning. And there's a lot of DNA. There's a lot of SEC DNA that would say this. But welcome to the wild world of silly season. And we haven't even talked about Harbaugh.
No. Oh, yeah.
Now Harbaugh might go to Seattle. Might go to New England.
Or Alabama.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Welcome in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley, the whole gang back in studio. Nick, Jimmy, and Gary. Steve Sipple will join us coming up at 8:30. Nebraska football, just out of nowhere. Hey, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world in sports. Let's just drop that we are getting a lineman who last year, I remember breaking down everything about Mazkua. And now Nebraska has themselves an offensive lineman with some SEC pedigree. After a couple of years at Baylor, last year at Florida, now Nebraska has added to their offensive line out of the portal. His brother is a walk-on running back at Nebraska this past year, and Nebraska got to the finish line with him last year, and then something happened, maybe a little NIL or something at the end, and he ended up in Gainesville. But he is going to be part of Nebraska's offensive line, really out of nowhere yesterday. So we will get into that as Sipple join us coming up at 8:30. Brad Edwards will join us at 9. And you're like, well, I thought Brad Edwards always joins us at 9:45. No, that's Brian Edwards. This is probably the first time in the history of radio we've had a Brad and a Brian in the same hour.
It's the brothers Edwards.
Can we get James related. Edwards? He's still alive.
So Brad Edwards, who is on still writes for ESPN.com, correct?
I think just freelance. He doesn't do it as much, though. No.
But he used to be a prominent part of their college football coverage.
Yeah.
And he knows Alabama quite well. He'll join us coming up at 9, and then Brian Edwards at 9:45, who he is probably celebrating as a Florida fan. I mean, who is not celebrating? I think
in Tuscaloosa.
I
Alabama
think
fans.
Everybody in the South is celebrating, unless your coach is somebody that is mentioned.
Right.
Like if you're Texas, think about Texas. Texas can celebrate that Saban is gone, but then they have to go, whoa, what if they call Sark? And then what if Sark takes Arch Manning?
Yeah. Oh, I think there's current athletic directors that are probably not celebrating because they know they're going to have to give their head coach a raise right
There
now.
are agents that are celebrating.
Oh, there are agents that are celebrating big
Shout
time.
out Jimmy Sexton.
Somehow James Franklin's going to get a raise out of all this.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will.
There are better agents than others because there are some mega buyouts. Like Lanning's buyout is high. Kalen DeBoer, who, man,
you've been on the bandwagon since the beginning.
I think for a not Nick, that would be very intriguing.
Could the Seahawks look at him?
Well,
I thought of you yesterday.
I think now he's going to get an interview. He has said that he does not want to leave the Seattle area until his daughter is done with school.
Good thing the Seahawks play.
But the Seahawks job is open. But he's somebody that might fit the bill, even though he doesn't have like an SEC background, which I think is pretty important because it's ruthless. That's why Lanning is appealing.
Yeah.
Because Lanning has gone to Oregon and acted like an SEC program. And you got to recruit and you got to do the NIL. And I also think you have to have some swag. You have to be a douche canoer.
Oh, yeah.
And
definitely.
Lanning.
So we're going to talk about Lane Kiffin now?
Lanning has well, that's why Lane Kiffin is successful in the SEC.
Yeah, it's true.
You have to be in the SEC and to be at a place like Alabama, you cannot be Mike Riley. You can't be Mike Riley and go back to Alabama. Okay, you in the nowadays where you got to draw some attention, you got to be a douche canoer. And Lanning has elements of that.
Yes,
do you remember the Colorado game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be very appealing because look at who you're going against. You're hiring a football coach. Can our football coach out-recruit and beat Kirby Smart? Yay or nay? Because our last guy did, maybe not all the time out-recruit him, but on the field, they were 8-1.
Lanning fits that bill.
I think more so than a lot of the names that are being thrown around. And Lane Kiffin's name has obviously been thrown around, but I don't know if that necessarily fits the comfort zone of Greg Byrne. I would think that Lanning would make more sense. The Sarkisian one is interesting, but as you said, I think right now
maybe Lane.
Texas is a good job.
Maybe Lane would fit in Tuscaloosa because he's currently with a girlfriend. When he was with Saban, he was single, and all the stories that he tore through T-Town. I think that would be a little tough as the head football coach at Alabama, where we got Roll Tide Willie that wants to meet with you every day. Is that you have a bachelor as a head football coach who previously introduced himself to a lot of people in Tuscaloosa.
So he still might have some friends.
I think he did until he found out that friend's husband was a booster.
Yeah.
All right, 42 past the hour. Again, yesterday, Pete Carroll out, Nick Saban retires, and now reportedly Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots have parted ways. Welcome to silly season. And oh, by the way, there is chaos in college basketball as the top four teams have all gone down over the last couple of days. It was another night of court storming last night in Orlando, where that longtime Big 12 rivalry of Central Florida and KU commenced once again. All right, 43 past the hour. You're always welcome to join the show. You got the lineup that is brought to you by the Rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard. We'll talk about what made Saban so good, what's next, and why did he retire. Plus, this is the Alabama fan. Come on in. We can relate. 30 years ago, it was happening around here. We felt the same way. That December, what was it, a Tuesday, I think?
I remember
I was in that room.
Remember, finals were going on because I went to Lincoln for a 311 concert when it happened. And yes, it was on a weekday.
Nice. Local tie-in.
Oh, I mean,
at the Pershing,
you were stunned, and then to listen to Coach up front talking, you're like, "This isn't happening. This isn't happening." Saban didn't have a press conference. We don't know if he'll ever have a press conference about this. But T.O., so we can relate. It's okay, Alabama fans. You can be sad. You can be somber. You can do all of those things, because when you have a GOAT, that's the emotion that you get. Same thing happened around here. I wonder what the reaction would have been if social media would have been around in 97.
Would have blown up. Been absolutely nuts. MySpace pages would have been just crazy.
That day was, man.
It was.
That was a really rough day. By the way, they still have another football game to play.
Yeah. Which at that point you knew, okay. I know maybe initially people were like, oh gosh, are they going to be distracted? And then I think at that point you knew Tennessee does not have a shot. I'll never forget though, pulling up to our friend's house and everybody was gathered around TV. We're like, what's going on? T.O.'s retiring. What? Like we're all getting ready to prime up for a concert, looking forward to a big time at the Pershing Auditorium, as many did. And
you guys were all somber.
just kind of sitting there, just stunned, like,
because
holy cow.
There were only a couple of people that knew this. Yeah, we didn't see this coming. The Saban one, you're starting to get hints that we're getting towards the end.
Yep. It was a question a lot throughout the year.
The T.O. one was like hit people like, whoa. Mm-hmm. The Saban one is like, whoa, but man, I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. I just didn't think it would be after the 2023 season. All right. The numbers, as always, to hop into the conversation. By the way, a conversation that happened on the show yesterday. Thank you to Ms. Sprinkles, who is now following me on Twitter and interacting with me. No, not yes.
That's hilarious.
Not yes.
Some good rhymes?
Not yes.
There's a Sprinkles that's following the Sharp and Handley account.
I got enough 18-year-old young women that are bots that are sending me pictures. I don't need Miss Sprinkles.
Can we at least get the daily rhyme? No. I want to hear the Thursday rhyme.
No.
Come on.
No. But now she wants to talk on Twitter.
Oh.
Nebraska ball.
She is following us. Yes, that's her.
Does she want to know about Zuka? Miskua?
No.
She want to know about Dante Dowdo?
951-1620. That is the 42-degree source hotline. You can always email us into the Equitable Bank inbox, Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley, 1620thezone.com.
On the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620.
And Nick Handley, 1620.
Where Miss Sprinkles and Downtown Council, which is Nebraska Ball Mike's new Twitter handle, can all be found. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com with Gary Sharp and and Nick Handley. The best way to catch all the action is on 1620 The Zone. And no line for the bathroom.
I'm Rick Betker from Omaha Car Care. We want to thank all our friends and clients who made 2023 a great year. And we hope you can help us spread joy to others. From now through January, we're hosting a boot drive for the kids of the Q school system. At this time of year, they could really use some warm boots. So if you could bring your new or gently used boots to any of our 4 locations, we'll make sure they get to kids in need. Thanks from Omaha Car Care.
We're going abroad for the first time in years, to Spain. So we started using Babel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babel.
Babel, language for life. Start learning a new language today at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's corporate cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/sports. Ramp.com/sports. RAMP.com/sports.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here. I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy. You know what? We should make an emergency communication plan. That way we're ready this year. At my dorm, we have emergency kits for earthquakes and wildfires, but I'm sure there's something more local I can send you with a link.
Okay, smart.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620.
Go and link it. Head football coach. He also has a vote in the AP, or not the AP, the Coaches Top 25, which they have just released all the coaches' votes. Guess who he left out of the top 25?
Iowa?
Yes.
He knows.
Smart man. Smart man. Don't give me
Playing the
that
rivalry.
No. That's a smart football move. He looks at, teams you beat, important games. 10 wins doesn't mean everything. Look at that. You think that'll come up next year?
Oh, yeah.
So Matt Rule did not vote Iowa in the top 25.
Nor did he retire yesterday, so there's that.
He'll be hanging out at the wrestling duel coming up Friday at the Devaney Center for Nebraska and Iowa when his defensive lineman, Nash Hutmacher, will wrestle. Yep. Mark Manning told our good friends Elijah and Schmidt yesterday that Hutmacher is going to wrestle.
That's awesome. You're going to be there, aren't you?
I'm going to be there.
That's awesome.
I'm very, very excited to be there.
with JD and Matt Rule.
Yes.
Not all the same, but
are you guys all sitting together?
No, we are not.
Would JD get along with Coach Rule?
He would not.
Okay.
He would not. He didn't get along with his own head football coach.
It's true. And Fran, too, when he's talking about basketball.
So there is the part of like Iowa, Nebraska, other schools. If you're an Alabama player, I mean, this is a shock to the system, and you wait of who it's going to be. That's why they have to. There's got to be a personality. I mean, Alabama football player can't do what the Nebraska players did when they introduced Mike Riley and have to go to Google to look him up. I mean, you got to hire a name where immediately your starting right tackle, who may have one foot out the door because of the uncertainty, goes, "Oh, I know that guy. I'll listen." But Iowa JD did bring something up because everybody in the country is probably looking at their roster going, "Man, we were recruiting that guy. He chose Alabama. He might be in the portal here, and we might have to make a decision." Is Caden Proctor from Southeast Polk High School in Des Moines was their starting tackle this year as a freshman. He got off to a rough start. He was better at the tail end of the season. But there's a guy, everybody's going to do this now in college football today, looking up and down Alabama's roster. I mean, look at yesterday, Ryan Williams, the five-star wide receiver, he decommits from Alabama. Now, I noticed that he's going to be on Texas A&M's campus this weekend. But how many schools that have recruited him in the past are like, "Oh, hey, 951-1620, hit me up. Those are my digits."
Like, how did our relationship? What is our current status with that relationship? And this goes to show you again, you don't burn bridges because you never know especially how quickly you might have another opportunity like that.
Here's the other falsehood that I've learned in college football. I've learned a lot of falsehoods in college football, but looking at Nebraska's roster after they add Mazuka yesterday as an offensive lineman, the 85 scholarships is a farce. Absolutely a farce. I love to have in my man cave, I got my scholarship chart up. I even have my walk-ons, so I know everybody that's in the program, and I'm like, okay, they're 9 over, they're 10 over. I'm done.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'm done. 85 is just a number we threw out there. Come on. Because you're thinking, okay, here's a guy that could be on an NIL scholarship. His dad
says no.
Yeah, his dad said he's on a full scholarship. Oh, now May could get kind of interesting around here with some players that would be in gots-to-go situations, and I'm not fretting over Nebraska being legal with their roster. But yesterday, I'm done with trying to go, well, 85 is the number. Can they get down to 85? No. We have no idea what the scholarship distribution looks like. And I think this is now a fruitless exercise on trying to figure out 85.
I saw one of the first things when the news broke that he was coming to Nebraska, when he announced that, I think one of the first stories that was written is he will likely be listed as a walk-on. And so then you're thinking, okay, he's going to be an NIL dude. And then you see his dad says he is definitely a full scholarship guy. So I don't think anybody knows. 85 meant something pre-NIL. There's so much ways to sort of massage it through the system right now. Anybody, because especially in programs where you're so far over, you figure things out. When you have the resources, when you have the collective, and you have the ability to have a quote walk on, there is money attached to that through NIL. And I understand, like, you can't be on a 4-year scholarship and all of a sudden your second year you're taking off that and put on. I know you can't do that, but as far as either freshman entering or getting a transfer portal guy, grad transfer type guy, so if his dad wants to say it's a full scholarship, who am I to say he's wrong? But it is. It's one of those things that I don't even think anybody can lose sleep over, because when it comes down to the deadline of when you have to have the quote 85 scholarship players, they will, and the rest will. They will have. I shouldn't say the rest. There are actual true walk-ons that actually have to pay for their school, but there are also the NIL scholarship or the NIL walk-ons that will have their expenses taken care of. That's just part of where the game is right now. So you don't worry about it.
I like this. Nebraska's finally acting like a big boy program. 85 is just a number. Johnny calls up Matt Rule's coach's show. Coach, man, I'm trying to figure this out. I think you got a numbers crunch. And he says, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're fine. We're fine. That's what schools do. But they auditioned yesterday, and then his dad saying he's going to be on a scholarship. And I'm thinking, wow, they're quite a bit over. I'm done. 85 is just a random number, and don't lose sleep over it. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And the fact that you don't have to lose sleep over it, welcome to big boy football. Now, there have been times, which is wild to think about, that Nebraska and a lot of other schools, I remember they're under Les Miles at LSU, they were very rarely at the full limit. Like Nebraska with Frost and a little bit with, there was, I think the last year with Riley, they weren't at 85. They might have been at 80. One of Riley's years, I think they were at 78. But Les Miles had a year, because we looked this up, he had, I think, 68 players on scholarship.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, there might have been 68 really good dudes.
Yeah.
But that was 17 below what you could have had. So 85 is just a random number that is thrown out there. Do you think the NCAA checks that on when camp starts in the fall?
They probably send out a memo saying they are.
Because you don't have to declare. Like, I think Isaiah Garcia Castaneda was on an NIL scholarship last year, but did anybody know that? Because he was on my 85. He was on my big board. He was on the wide receiver list as a scholarship guy.
You just assume that they're a scholar guy.
But I think he was on an NIL scholarship. So
there's got to be some type of, right? There's got to be somebody in like NCAA compliance that is
the only
checking
time
every
the only
part
time
of that.
NCAA compliance probably gets involved is if a guy's getting screwed with his NIL deal.
True. Yeah, when somebody actually says, hey, I was promised this. They're not delivering. I would, although this is me putting faith in the NCAA of actually enforcing this. It's probably as simple as a reminder memo sent out like a week before. Maybe it goes like it's the midsummer reminder. And then as you get closer to your media days, there's another reminder. And then the week before your camp opens, they're like, okay, remember, you got to be down to 85. We will be checking. And I don't really know if they check.
Like, do you have to declare to the NCAA who's on an NIL scholarship?
It's a good question.
Now, basketball, because of
I would think you do.
Basketball, much smaller numbers you can track.
That's easy to track, yeah. I would think you would have to.
But there is, like, Texas Tech. Omaha played Texas Tech earlier this year. Texas Tech has, like, 17 guys on their roster. Like, Nebraska volleyball also is kind of secretive about scholarships on their distribution. But 85 is now just a random number. And that's okay. Adam also adds, Pelini also was never really at 85.
There was a Frost year, and it had a lot to do with some transfers and whatnot, too, that I remember. I don't think they got up there. I think they were maybe 5 or 6 short of 85. So, yeah, which is crazy to think that here you're trying to whittle it down to 85 significantly. And to think that you'd have an LSU, and you're right, probably extremely talented LSU team under Les Miles, that was at, what'd you say, 68?
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. That is just crazy. Because, I mean, there was a time that I know even Harbaugh was accused of this early in his time at Michigan of, over offering, and then all of a sudden, this person would accept, and so you had to, pull offers and whatnot because
that's the SEC. But it's more the SEC rule.
Yeah,
because the SEC teams would, they'd be processing guys, but you could do their scholarship distribution, and some schools would have 112 guys on alleged scholarships.
Yeah, I think at some point it probably became a very, especially now with NIL, that the NCAA has probably become very tough for them to completely track. That's a great question, though. Do you have to report an NIL scholarship?
Answered by somebody in the know.
Okay.
They said universities don't have to disclose anything regarding NIL to the NCAA.
Wow.
The NCAA is trying to pass legislation to change that. The only rules regarding NIL and scholarships right now are that freshmen must be on scholarship.
Okay.
So 85 is just blowing in the wind.
Yep.
As we
It's a suggestion.
But Nebraska yesterday, whether he's a walk-on, NIL, full scholarship,
he's coming.
Probably got their starting guard. I saw the guy that he might be replacing last night at the Outland banquet. I'll tell you, kind of shape Ethan Piper is in. Great event last night we had quite a few listeners that I saw that were there last night, and always they put on a great show. But we'll talk about Nebraska's addition onto the offensive line. Should slide in and be a starter or one of three at a guard position, possibly. 7:02. Jimmy's got an update coming up. Again, Bill Belichick and the Patriots reportedly have parted ways early this morning, the morning after the GOAT retires, Nick Saban. And if you were watching yesterday, this is the power of radio. This is why we love it. Real time. If you were watching Feinbaum, when you got the alert from Chris Lowe of ESPN, who was the first to report it, and you said, I got to go watch Paul, they got it in real time as well. And Feinbaum's reaction, he didn't know what to do, and they immediately went to break, and then they came back, and it was gold. And all he has to do for the rest of the week is just open up the phone lines to Alabama fans. So that show is going to be must watch. But it was in real time. Of all people, Feinbaum getting that news was great radio yesterday. Also great television. I'm listening to him on the radio, but watch him on television because his reaction was like, whoa. And then like, break. Yeah. We'll get Chris Lowe next.
Yeah.
All right, we got Jimmy next with an update. Big night last night for Creighton women. Blew out Butler, among other things. And don't forget Omaha men's basketball tonight over on News Talk 1290 Quail. They're at home for North Dakota. As they are back in Summit League play. All that and much more to come. Steve Sipple, Brad Edwards, Brian Edwards, all on this Thursday edition of Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
More with Gary and Nick after this on 1620 The Zone. Live from the Host Coffee Studio, this is 1620 The Zone. 1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Zoom Drain Time-Saving Traffic Center. An accident reported Highway 370 westbound at 72nd on the right shoulder, and things moving a little slow JFK northbound between L Street and I-80. Expect delays in both of those areas, and just as a reminder, some slick conditions out there. Just proceed with caution and be safe. Remember to wear those seatbelts. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by Zoom Drain.
Zoom Drain's highly trained team of experts and our fleet of well-equipped service trucks are dedicated to providing solutions for homeowners, plumbing contractors, mechanical contractors, and business owners across many industries. Contact Zoom Drain anytime by logging on to zoomdrain.com.
The world's on fire. Attacks in the Middle East, Ukraine and Russia at war. And right here, Joe Biden has created a dangerous threat to every American. Biden's open border policies have opened the floodgates to a record number streaming in, 12,000 in one day alone. This means increased terrorist threats and even more deadly fentanyl being delivered to our neighborhoods. President Trump will change that. He'll secure our borders by building even more wall. He'll end visitors from terrorist countries being allowed to enter. And Trump will treat the drug cartels the same as he treated terrorists who kill Americans. President Trump, the strength to protect our borders and our families.
I'm Donald Trump, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President 2024, Inc.
At Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Midlands, one youth, one mentor, plus one moment could unlock limitless potential. When you sign up to become a mentor, you're matched up one-to-one with a child in the Omaha community. Sign up today at mentoromaha.org.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something. Whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You can find pizza anywhere. But when you want pizza pie piled high with more toppings, that's when you come to my place, Godfather's Pizza. For a limited time, get your hands on 2 of my large one-topping pizzas. Pick pepperoni, beef, black olives, you choose. All this food for only $30. Feed your whole mob without breaking the bank. Hey, it's an offer you can't refuse. Godfather's Pizza. Do it.
Equitable Bank. We take banking personally. EquitableOnline.com.
The Creighton Blue Jays welcome Rick Pitino to Omaha for the first time as they host the St. John's Red Storm. Saturday pregame coverage begins at 10 a.m. Tip-off is at high noon. The Creighton Blue Jays are on 1620 The Zone and 1019 The Keg.
KOZN Bellevue, Omaha, Council Bluffs. This is 1620 The Zone. Now back to mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick. What do they all have in common? All are now potential new co-hosts on After Hours with Jimmy Allen, now that their schedule is a little more open. So congratulations to them. Nebraska women's basketball hosts Illinois tonight at PBH. Australia night, tip-off is 7 o'clock. Here's your Husker bowling update. Nebraska bowling team claims a second-place finish at the Storm and Blue and White Classic in Vegas. Yesterday, they finished with 11-1 overall record. They're a wagon. After 5 Baker total pinfall matches and 5 traditional matches on Monday and Tuesday, the Huskers bowled 3 best 4 of 7 Baker matches on Wednesday for the tournament title. All right. Mallory Brake and Emma Ronsick combined for 37 points, 12 rebounds. Sounds like a Tim Duncan line. And 4 steals without a turnover to guide Creighton as they take care of Butler 89-53. The Jays improved to 12-3 on the season, 3-2 in the Big East. Butler falls to 8-7. They're winless in conference play. The Jays host Providence Sunday at 1. Omaha basketball hosts North Dakota at Baxter Arena tonight at 7 o'clock. Omaha will host North Dakota's Climate all weekend. Meanwhile, Omaha women's basketball gets a first-hand glimpse of that cold in Grand Forks tonight. Then they'll tauntaun to Fargo to play the Bison on Saturday afternoon. Police in South Florida say a man fatally shot a 30-year-old member of Bills Mafia during an altercation near Hard Rock Stadium after the Bills defeated Miami for the AFC East Championship on Sunday. As Dylan Brody Isaacs and his friends were returning to their vehicle after the game Sunday night, they had an altercation with the driver of another vehicle a few blocks from the stadium. The driver pulled out a gun, fired shots at Isaacs, who died at the scene, according to police. The man fled in an older model Honda Accord, which was located in Palm Beach County. The next day, the vehicle was seized as part of an investigation. Detectives have identified and interviewed a suspect, but that person's name wasn't immediately released. Dolphins and Chiefs Saturday night on The Zone, by the way. Finally, last night in the NBA, it was the game of the year as the 3-34 Pistons hosted my slightly less embarrassing 5-30 San Antonio Spurs. Thankfully, Victor Wembanyama plays for the Spurs and looked like the biggest playmaker in the world, setting up teammates with slick passes on the break and in the post. Wemby had 16 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists for his first NBA triple-double as the Spurs win 130-108 in Detroit last night. Wemby played just 21 minutes, the second fewest minutes in a triple-double performance of the shot clock era. Russell Westbrook played 20 minutes, 17 seconds, and had a triple-double for Oklahoma City in 2014 against the 76ers. The Spurs are now 6-30. The Pistons are 3-35. People forget these two once played for the NBA championship. In fact, going 7 games in 2005, in which the fourth quarter was tied at 57 going into it. I don't forget.
Play the role of a Golden State fan. Boo! I got booed off the floor last night. I got blown up by New Orleans. I'm taking that because of the writer's strike and the shows are not back until
March
next month.
Or next month.
The NBA is on ABC.
Yeah, they should add Spurs Pistons last night. Come on. It's January. Throw that on.
They should have the Celtics and Timberwolves. That turned out to be a pretty good game as the Celtics are 18-0 at home. But I was flipping through. I'm like, why on a Wednesday night are the Warriors and the Pels, who absolutely blistered Golden State, on ABC? The Golden State fans booed.
It's getting restless.
Live sports, we said it before.
They're probably going to need a little shakeup. I got Draymond sitting on the bench. He's about to come back. Chris Paul's on the shelf. Steph is not getting much help. Clay is not Clay. They're not aging very well. So I wonder if Golden State blows it up or they say one final run. We just need one more piece. Trade deadline will be kind of interesting. What if Kevin Durant?
I was just going to say.
Hey.
Allegedly, he's not happy in Phoenix.
I don't know why. I was just there. It's lovely.
Well, but they're underachieving. They haven't.
Yeah, they're bad.
They haven't had a good season. All right, as Jimmy mentioned, tonight, Omaha men's basketball is taking on North Dakota.
I want to go to that, but what is I don't know what the weather's going to do.
It's going to be cold.
Is it supposed to snow by then?
We're supposed to be closed at Baxter. You should be good.
We're by this time tomorrow morning, we're supposed to have blizzard conditions.
Hey.
Yeah, there's that.
Fun.
So I will not be walking to the arena tonight. I'll have to drive. Take me about 2.5 minutes. I hope there's not traffic at 67th and Center at that stoplight.
Okay.
Think I'll be okay?
Yeah, I think you'll be okay.
All right.
You got like you know what? You should sled over there. That'd be fun. There's no good declines.
There are people sledding at night the other night at Memorial Park.
They should. Sledding, we should make sledding big again.
You got to light it up. They got the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
The hill over on, it used to be, I don't think it is anymore, but, on 120th and L, where they used to have a bunch of hotels and stuff, but there's that corner right there. There's a famous Dave's, like that was Caddy Corner. But yeah, that little street, that corner right on 120th and L had a huge hill when I was growing up, and that's where people would go because you had the street lights up. So it was kind of like a night game. It was fun.
So while we whine about weather on the radio and quickly remind ourselves that what part of the country we live in.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard this? And I don't think it's a myth. So I really wanted to go to the Chiefs game. It was probably the final home game that they're going to play. But it coincides with Omaha's playing Saturday night against North Dakota State. So I'll be doing the game and watching the Chiefs and Dolphins on Peacock courtside. So if you don't have Peacock, come to the Omaha men's game.
Hang out at the
Just
scores
sit next
table.
to me.
Say hi.
But
do you give Crutch updates too?
I don't know if he's an NFL guy.
He's locked in.
His staff talks a lot of NFL, but I've never heard Crutch talk about the NFL. But a friend of mine is going. He yesterday told me, because it's going to be bitterly cold. I mean, 5 degrees at kickoff, -8 wind chill. It is what it is. He said he's taking cardboard because he'll stand the whole game.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I have heard this.
We've
Yeah,
gone together and
insulating.
So we're stand the majority of the game.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I'm taking cardboard to stand on."
Yes.
Does that work?
Yes, I've heard of it.
I've never tried it, and it's funny. The last time
first, do they let you bring it into the stadium?
You can smuggle that in.
Where would you put cardboard at?
In your coat. It's not going to go through the metal detector. It's not going to be set off. Unless as you're going through, if you put some stuff that might set it off, do you just set your big your big moving box right there and just say, "Oh, that's just for."
I don't think when you go into a stadium and it says like no guns, fireworks, nunchucks,
cardboard,
Chinese stars,
machetes.
It does not say no cardboard.
Yeah, cardboard's pretty harmless.
So I've not heard about this. And he said, "Yeah, I'm taking cardboard so I can stand on it and keep my feet warm." I'm like, "Are you making that up?" So I did Google it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Wow, people do this."
Yeah,
the Wisconsin game last year. In
in
Lincoln.
Nebraska.
That's where I learned that.
At Arrowhead, I went to a Chiefs-Chargers game a while back, and it wasn't nearly as cold as it's going to be on Saturday. But I remember as soon as the sun kind of went behind the stadium there, and as it tends to, no matter even on a sunny day in the winter or late fall, that it just gets cloudy eventually, no matter what. Holy cow, my feet were freezing, and I was dressed for the elements. Like I had thick socks on. And I think I had like boots on too. And that was the first thing I noticed. Well, people next to me, I noticed had cardboard and they were standing on cardboard. And I thought that I didn't ask them anything. I didn't say like, "Oh, does that actually work?" But I've noticed, because I've been to Soldier Field since as well on a cooler day, I've noticed more people have cardboard. And I noticed some people, if it's super cold, and there was one Bears game I went to where people had the coveralls, but they were actually pulling like cardboard out of their coveralls because they actually just had it as insulation on top as well. So they weren't even standing on it. They just had it inside their coveralls.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
Duct tape and cardboard and you could live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a very underrated thing, especially at that stadium. It's just all cement that like your feet are like the first thing to start feeling it.
Okay. So
like,
it
definitely is.
When he first told me yesterday, I was like, "Come on, man." And then in our discussion, I did Google it and I'm like, "Oh, people really do this."
Mm-hmm.
So that game's coming up on Saturday night, where the Dolphins have to make the trip into the Midwest. Win your division, you don't have to do that. For people that are wondering, because I know you are, If you held out and you did not get Peacock for the Nebraska-Purdue game, instead you listened to the GOAT, Kent, the entire game is up on YouTube.
I saw that.
So it's not Peacock putting up. It is a guy named the Draftmatic has put the entire game up on YouTube.
With KP instead of...
No, it's the Peacock broadcast.
Oh, it is. Okay.
And as I watch this, I still chuckle to myself, because I haven't used the word chuckle in a while, and that's a very older man term, is Nebraska beat the number one team in the country 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
And the athletic director and the head football coach stormed the floor. I can't get over how funny that is.
It's because everybody was lost in the moment. That's what happens when you do something like that.
That is still fantastic.
It is. It's great. And I feel like there should still be a lingering effect. And unfortunately, the news yesterday with Pete Carroll and Nick Saban, now Bill Belichick, has taken a little bit of that. But yeah, there should still be a lingering effect. I had a good friend, to one of my old producers, TJ Henning, who's a huge Nebraska hoop head. He was at the game, and he was. There are certain people in that moment took place on Tuesday night that you immediately think of that are like, oh my gosh, they have just got to be in heaven right now. He was one of them. He and I heard from a couple other people. They said they didn't know if they would really. Now, he didn't say this, but I had another friend say, I didn't know if I would really be in on a 4-hour show of just Nebraska basketball talk, but by God, that was fun. I said, you know what? It was fun because there's not a lot of days that we can go 4 hours of Nebraska hoops talk other than maybe an NCAA tournament berth or, dare I say, win. It was so appropriate.
Well, wait till tomorrow when we talk about Nebraska playing at Iowa tomorrow night. Probably a really, really small crowd at Carver Hawkeye.
That's huge.
So not to make light, but the weather is going to get really nasty around here, like 7 o'clock tonight and into early tomorrow morning.
There you go, Nick.
And that storm is going to make its way across the state of Iowa. It's going to be in eastern Iowa around tip time tomorrow night. I got to think there's going to not be many people in Carver Hawkeye. Don't worry. We'll talk about ghosts of Nebraska ball past when discussing that game tomorrow, because it hits you after a win like Purdue is like, oh, in the past, I know what's going to happen. But there will be a very, very small, I think there will be a small crowd. They were expecting I don't think a sellout, but
a good crowd.
Pretty dang close. But the blizzard conditions that are going to roll through here will be over in Iowa City like 5-6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you're not. It's Iowa this year.
Well, exactly.
You're not
That's
going.
the thing.
You're not going. You're going to sit at home and you're going to watch Nebraska Iowa wrestling, and then you're going to watch Nebraska Iowa men's basketball. Doug writes into his own inbox. A litany of questions here. Jimmy, can you email Nebraska Ball Mike's Twitter?
Well, he just called actually, and he told me
Nebraska Ball Mike?
Yes, he told me to tell you guys you're welcome for sprinkles.
No.
That's a Gary
He
problem,
said
man.
you don't have
No,
you don't have
that's
to
a
put,
Gary.
no.
That's a Gary
It's a you too because
No.
Sprinkles follows the show, so it's all of us.
Oh,
No.
So we're all in on
We're
this?
all in on it.
Okay. You know what? I will call to win if Gary does her daily rhymes.
So
if that's a daily thing.
Okay.
Can we get the voice guy to do it?
We should.
Okay, so this was the interaction yesterday. Nebraska Ball Mike, who is at Downtown Council, COUNSEL.
Yep.
He tweeted at Sprinkles 1969. Hun, hey hun, heads up. You are slightly infamous in Middle America today.
Oh, God.
If you are getting random followers and comments from the Midwest, there's a reason. Reach out if you want details. What did I tell Mike? Don't do this. And she was like, okay. He just said Google 1620 the zone.
Oh,
all right. Okay.
And
I hope she follows all the
and
shows.
if not, he tagged me. He can answer your questions. All right. So we have a new listener.
It's Downtown Council, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is there. But back to Doug's email. So you have it now. Must be a bland day at 1620. Where are the bright colors logos?
What?
And we're all in black.
Oh, we are all. Well, it's for Nick Saban.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a retirement. It's not a funeral. It's a retirement. Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick.
Will Purdue remain number one now? No. You know who could be?
UConn.
UConn. That's where Creighton plays next week. The next 3 games for Creighton are quite intriguing. 2 of the next 3 are on the road. St. John's, who is tied for first, who held off Providence last night. Man, give me some Soriano versus Kolk. There's going to be some truth serum coming out on Saturday afternoon downtown. But then they go to UConn, and then they go to Seton Hall. I think UConn will be number 1. If not, look at Kentucky.
Yep.
I mean, could Kentucky go from number 6 to number 1? How many plastic surgeries has Pitino had?
It's a good question.
No, it's
just
blood.
it's blood. It's just blood. That's all.
It's what?
Blood.
Yeah, vampire.
Yeah, he stays young forever because
Does he look like he's had Botox? No, I think he's just aged.
No, I wouldn't say Botox.
Staged.
Usually, like when they smile, is when you can really tell the Botox. I haven't really noticed that.
Will Nebraska basketball win at Iowa? I'll hold off until tomorrow, boys.
Mm-hmm. Nervous.
The crowd or lack thereof actually encourages my thoughts on that game.
There's
sleepy crowd. That's their problem.
There's a little hangover effect that I worry about, and also playing
hangover
on
and
the
fatigue.
road,
yeah,
where Iowa's not very good defensive. That could be a high-scoring, entertaining game.
So there's that.
But Nebraska road defense. And then finally, Iowa didn't deserve to be in the top 25. Hashtag weak sauce. Matt Rule didn't think so either. Didn't voted them.
Yeah.
Didn't voted to them. Thank you. Into the top 25. Chris writes in. Forget Saban or Belichick. End of an era. And I'm with Chris here. Fruit stripe gum is going to be discontinued after 50 years.
Good.
Whoa.
Wow.
Good.
Whoa.
That flavor lasted not even Juicy Fruit was one of the best out of the gate and then lasted like 30 seconds. Fruit Stripe lasted even less.
So it's like high school.
Oh, I hated it because Fruit Stripe was the ultimate tease. You got that in your mouth. You're like, this is fantastic. And then all of a sudden, 5 seconds later, you're chewing on wax.
But you could give it out as tips at a hotel.
You are
true.
disparaging.
That is true.
One of the icons of the gum industry.
Yeah, I don't care. It was garbage.
I liked Fruit
Stripe. It was the biggest tease. I thought Juicy Fruit was the biggest tease until I had Fruit Stripe. Again, solid out of the gate. You have it, you're like, whoa. It's like an explosion of flavor in your mouth, and then 3 seconds later, it's gone.
What did you say?
An explosion of flavor in your mouth. That's what I said. And then it was gone. Like people who can chew Fruit Stripe gum or Juicy Fruit for longer than a minute.
Time out.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's all you.
What do you got?
Now, I'm not necessarily with you on this, but if you'd like to do that and you'd like to have, how'd you describe it?
An explosion of flavor in your mouth.
Okay. to each their own. But I will.
Would you prefer I said there's a party in your mouth and everyone's invited?
I will back you up. The first couple of seconds of each stick was pure bliss in your mouth.
Because that's better.
Well, because I think you like the elongated enjoyment in your mouth.
That's why I'm a Bubblicious fan.
People do like long.
Not only that, but you can blow bubbles with it.
Okay, you're a grown man. No bubbles.
I haven't. No, okay, I take that back. What's the
Hubba Bubba?
Super Bubble that you get, in the big plastic buckets that you'd have in baseball. Every now and then, if I got my hands in those in the last 10 years, I would tend to blow some bubbles. But yeah, I don't blow bubbles with my gum anymore.
This party isn't a party without bubbles.
But Fruit Stripe, come on, man.
I don't think
it's overrated.
I don't think, except for to have better breath, I've purchased gum in a long time. But when I was in baseball, of course, I remember right before spring training when they would send all of that gum and bazooka. We would get
bazookas?
crates that would come for spring training.
Yeah.
And they'd put them out in the clubhouse. I destroyed a lot of gum back in those 10 years.
Bazookas, again, not long lasting, but longer than Fruit Stripe and Juicy Fruit. Bazookas, I could go a while because by the time it lost its flavor, you're already committed to it, and it was just part of your routine at that point. You were chewing it.
So I don't want to be all nostalgic. And Craig writes in, Fruit Stripe gum objectively sucked.
I agree.
He goes, you're getting nostalgic about a piece of gum. I'm getting old. Wow. I get nostalgic about a lot of different things. Trust
now
me.
the phone's ringing.
Okay.
But
I can't remember the last time I bought like a regular pack of gum where I said, you know what? I'd like some Hubba Bubba. I'd like some Bubblicious.
Yeah, I can't remember the
everything. And then there's not a lot of those anymore in gum. I mean, it's the young kids don't understand how cool it was to have gum.
Yeah.
And how you tried to sneak gum.
Oh.
And then if you got caught, you were in trouble. Or if you were like myself, that my parents didn't necessarily want me chewing gum because I would swallow it.
Yep. Same here.
I would go to bed with gum in my mouth, and I would wake up and it'd be stuck in my hair.
Mhm.
And so then mom would have to get out the nail polish and
What did they say?
and the scissors and cut part of my hair out to get the gum out.
If you swallowed the gum, it took how long to like digest?
Yeah.
There was always a myth. I
7
can't-
years.
Is it 7 years? Okay.
See, this is what I found
I remember
out.
it was 7 years of bad luck
Hey.
with a broken mirror.
Rest in peace, Mom. Dad, you keep living your best life. You're acting like you're 35 years old. You might as well buy a Ferrari down there in South Florida. My parents lied to me a lot when I was a kid. They told me a lot of things that were not true. That it took me about 30 years to figure out. Like, hey, don't eat gum because you know what that's going to do.
Don't swallow watermelon seeds.
Yeah. You know what? Our parents lie to us.
Oh, yeah.
And they need to be called out on the carpet.
Mhm.
Hey, Walt and Barb, I'm telling you, I got receipts.
Are you asleep? Nope. Resting
Well,
my eyes.
but we were all told like the same thing because the same thing with gum that I heard as well. Now, I don't know if this was going on out there in the Iowa side of things when it came to
out there
gum exchange out there on the other side of the river. Well, I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember the hometown, Urbandale.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was reaching for the hometown, so I just went with out there.
Like 2 hours away.
Back in Kalispell.
Way out there in the East Coast time zone in Urbandale.
Out there in Bettendorf, Makokata.
Don't get me started on Dubuque. When you
boy, how far is Decorah from here?
Home of Luther College. When you if anybody ever asked you for gum in elementary, middle school, and you first of all, if you had like Bubble Yum or Bubblicious, you wouldn't part with it. But if someone did ask you for gum and you gave them that was a status thing, because most of us were like saddled with like the quantity of like Big Red gum, probably pretty affordable, and you had a lot of it.
Oh yeah, Big Red gum was.
Mm-hmm. So you could always exchange it and be like, here you go. I got a piece of gum. And you'd be like, all right, cool, thanks. But if someone gave you a bubble issue, like, damn, someone's living fat.
I don't see Big Red gum.
No,
I don't either.
I don't see it's mints now.
I can't remember the last time I saw Fruit Stripe.
Yeah.
Well, you won't anymore,
I know,
apparently.
But I didn't. If you would have told me that, oh, yeah, that was canceled a long time ago, I would have said, yeah, that sounds about right.
Big Red gum would have been big here. No pun intended.
It was. Didn't T.O. chew Big Red gum?
He did.
Oh.
Because he wasn't.
It was the same piece of gum like for the entire game.
He wasn't lighting up a grit on the sidelines like Switzer.
NIL before there was a thing.
Scott writes in, he goes, Gary, I'm with you. It was the greatest 12 seconds of my life.
Which one?
I think we're talking about the gum.
Yeah, but which gum? Because I brought up I brought up Juicy Fruit.
No, Fruit Stripe.
Did you even get 12 seconds out of it?
That'd be a question you'd have to answer.
Wins or wins?
Here is random Mike on the 42-degree source hotline. Good morning, Mike.
Transfers from heaven.
Stick to the subject,
Mike.
We're talking about Fruit Stripe gum. Mike, when's the last time you got yourself a pack of gum?
There you go. A pack of gum.
A pack.
A pack of gum.
Yep. I'll take this in a pack of gum.
It's been a while.
Okay, that's fair.
Did you think during volleyball season that Merritt Beeson might be the best transfer we ever had in any sport?
Ooh. I didn't think about every sport, but she was as advertised.
Yeah. I mean, without her, are we even close to the finals? And unfortunately, probably her worst game in the finals. But I don't want to dwell on that. Rank Mass, is that a great transfer or what?
Yes.
That is a transfer that is an ideal fit. That's the one thing that Fred, in constructing the roster for this year, his transfers are good fits. They're not just random guys that you're adding to fill a roster. But they fill a role, and Rink Mast is ideal.
Yeah, and how about Jordy Ball? I think we can say for sure if she's healthy, that's going to be a great transfer.
I mean, I would think that should be just fine.
Yeah.
I think that will be.
This could be the year for transfers at Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
And the football team, maybe.
Yeah, okay, so let me ask you this. I see what you're on here, Mike.
Saying Dowdell or Nizuka?
I'm vibing with you. Of the portal additions with a starting offensive lineman that's going to join you that was announced yesterday, who is the most you're excited about?
Yeah, because there aren't a lot of them. But
no, but they all fit key positions.
Yeah, exactly. And the receivers. And are we going to get that one more?
Should know in days.
Yeah,
waiting to find out. That might. We talked to BC the other day, and he briefly talked to Jamal Banks, and he was hoping Wednesday or Thursday.
And are you guys surprised that our 2 D linemen are coming back?
No.
I mean, when Robinson said he's coming back, man, to me that was
a little bit surprised about Ty Robinson, but his reasoning. Then I say, okay, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great sign.
I thought that he might, after the year that he put up, bounce, but he didn't even really cross his mind. He wanted to be part of this again.
Yeah, and of course Nash coming back. Is Nash going to wrestle on Friday?
Yes, he is.
Oh, fantastic, and that's going to be a good wrestler he's going against.
Well, it's so right now at heavyweight for Iowa, they have a redshirt freshman who's okay, but they have a linebacker who was a great high school wrestler that now that Iowa's football season is over, he has started to wrestle, and I don't know if they'll wrestle him on Friday night. That would be great to have 2 D1 football players that were great in their prep careers wrestle at 285. But I don't know from Iowa side. But Nash is wrestling according to Coach Manning.
Who is the greatest wrestler? Pardon me. Who is the greatest football player transfer to Nebraska ever? Does anyone come to mind?
Greatest football transfer to Nebraska?
Yeah, to Nebraska.
Scott Frost. He did transfer.
Was Jarvis Redwine a transfer?
Ooh, that I don't know.
I don't. From a Division I school?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Vin Ferragamo was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How about
okay.
No, I was just thinking Nebraska quarterbacks in the pros that did really well, with all due respect.
Huh.
And not a big list. You'd have to say Vince Ferragamo at the top.
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah. The last Nebraska Cornhusker football player to start at quarterback in the NFL was Bruce Matheson.
Yeah, but Ferragamo, really good Super Bowl.
Yeah, he was okay with the Rams. He's done pretty well for himself post NFL career. Being sarcastic.
Transfers from heaven. Maybe this is the year.
Yeah, that'd be quite the song. Mike, thank you for the call.
You bet.
Petty's Road. Dave on the stream says Zach Taylor. Zach was a JUCO guy, so I wouldn't consider that a transfer.
Your suggestion of Frost might win the title here. Random Mike's question.
Yeah, because if we're holding the most successful one of what they did beyond college, well, okay, that's isn't the conversation more about how they impacted Nebraska? That's why I would say Scott.
He's got a national title. I mean, Trey Palmer's got to be on a short list.
Yes,
for what he did in his lone year at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thought we were going to get Nebraska ball Mike and random Mike back to back yesterday. Did not come.
He must not have been listening at the time because I felt like he was given his cue to call.
Now, technically, they were back to back today. It's just Mike said you didn't have to put me on. Just said tell the guys. Tell the guys I say thank you for, or you're welcome for sprinkles.
Chris writes in fruit stripe equals patino. What a perfect transition. Same lasting time.
How did it take this long for that? That was good.
Hey, how big is Patino? You heard the promo, Bishop's promo for the game on Saturday.
Patino
not about. Hey, come watch Soriano.
He is really
come
good.
Watch Patino.
Come watch a Big East Saturday afternoon in Omaha, man.
At noon.
Yes, and nope. He's the headliner. He's
the
the headliner everywhere in the Big East.
He should be. They're 4-1.
Mm-hmm.
They're tied for first. They didn't win their fourth game of the conference season until much later last year. What he's doing is pretty impressive. But the Big East is an absolute juggernaut. Every single night in the Big East. Look at Butler beat Marquette last night in Milwaukee, where Marquette's not supposed to lose. Marquette's all of a sudden 2-3. They're 2-3. Kolek and Jones were brutal last night. Kolek's been bad the last two games. The only given is that DePaul is god awful.
Yeah.
And Georgetown may stress you for 7 to 10 minutes. And if they're stressing you for 20, then you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Other than that, the league 1 through 8 is pretty damn good.
Yeah, even Xavier UConn last night was a 5-point UConn win.
Yeah, but I say 1 through 8 is UConn is starting to separate themselves.
Yeah.
We haven't had a repeat national champion in college basketball in a while.
Florida.
They have a lot of ingredients that say, dang, UConn may do it again.
Ken emails me, Jarvis Redwine transfers to NU from Oregon State. So he was a Beaver.
Oh, okay.
Took the Mike Riley approach. Going from Corvallis to Lincoln.
I think after I responded to Mike, I remembered that he was a former Beaver. But no, if you won a national championship, and you were the starting quarterback and you transferred.
Yeah. You were
he was pretty good.
Big part of that, yes.
Yeah. All right, when we come back, more on Nick Saban, because if Nick Saban was a university, wouldn't he be a blue blood? Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. Hey, when it comes to the NFL playoffs, you got one game at a time. But when you bet the NFL playoffs on FanDuel, one game can mean a lot of dubs. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. You know, that's the place to go when you want to get involved in the NFL action. It has all your favorite bets like money line and the spread, plus all sorts of prop bets.
Yeah, and the new parlay builder is a lot of fun. In fact, this weekend you could take advantage of that. Look at possibly a Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Allen, anytime touchdown parlay. That and so much more is how you can have fun with the parlay builder at FanDuel. That means when you combine all of your bets for a chance at a bigger payday, you'll get bonus bets back if your same game parlay does not win. All right, now, FanDuel is giving all customers that no sweat same game parlay. Just visit FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com/zone. Use the promo code ZONE if you don't already have an account. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Iowa. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF.
Gary Sharp, Nick Handley, and Jimmy Chavez. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Weekdays 6 to 10 on 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com. Previously on Unsportsmanlike Conduct.
Do you think the top part of a mermaid also tastes like fish, or would it actually be red meat?
I think it kind of blends toward the waist, like in the middle, you get like a nice cut of both.
Wouldn't the top half of the mermaid be white meat?
No, are people white meat?
No, we're red meat, John.
The breasts! The breasts!
Oh, those.
Unsportsmanlike Conduct with John Bishop and Josh Peterson. Weekdays 2 to 6 on 1620 The Zone. Your Omaha area forecast from the Godfather's Pizza Weather Center and KETV Newswatch 7 on 1620 The Zone.
Dry for most of Thursday with partly to mostly cloudy skies, highs around 20. Winter storm warning goes into effect late in the day with snow moving in mainly after 6 p.m. in the Omaha metro. Snow continues overnight, heavy at times, and will still linger into Friday morning. Expect storm totals around 4 to 7 inches in the Omaha metro with wind chills 10 to 15 below zero Friday. I'm meteorologist Sean Everson from KETV Newswatch 7.
Visit KuglerVision.com today and check out their special New Year's savings. It's KuglerVision.com.
1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Zoom Drain Time-Saving Traffic Center. If you're traveling on I-680 northbound, an accident has been reported on the exit ramp to westbound I-80. Do watch out for that. And some heavier traffic reported dodge eastbound between 168th and 144th Streets. And some slick conditions out there, so just proceed with caution wherever you're going. Remember to be safe. Wear those seatbelts. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic is brought to you by Saul's Jewelry and Loan.
Sometimes life throws you a curveball and you need a solution fast. A solution to help you make payroll, to save your house, to keep growing, or fund a startup, to fix a roof or other major repair. Saul's is your fast, local, confidential solution. Get the cash you need today with Saul's.
Planning something fun for your office, family, or friends? Joe's Karting is for you. Take a break. Come to Joe's to race, relax, and recharge. Great for team building. Ditch the speaker and burn some rubber. Trust us, Joe says you'll leave motivated. Joe's Karting race packages range from providing simple stress relief races to the real deal race experience. Check us out at joeskarting.com. Remember, go to Joe's, your place to race.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's corporate cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/sports. 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 How much do you worry about your debt?
With over $15,000 I owe, constantly it keeps me awake at night.
Accelerated debt settlement can cut your debt by up to 85% and in as little as 7 to 12 months.
I could be free of debt in no time?
That's right. Other debt settlement companies can take years to negotiate down your debt, but accelerated debt settlement moves fast.
The sooner I don't have to stress about my debt, the better.
Exactly. In just months, Accelerated Debt Settlement's legal team will negotiate your unsecured debt down 60, 80, even 100%. Your debt from credit cards, student loans, timeshares, medical expenses, and more cut down 60, 80, even 100%. And you'll save thousands of dollars in interest payments.
Finally, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
And a good night's sleep.
Now get free of debt in a year or less with Accelerated Debt Settlement. Just call 1-888-508-8051 and we'll get to work for you. That's 1-888-508-8051. 1-888-508-8051.
And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
All right, Steve Sipple coming up in less than an hour. Talk about the addition yesterday of Zuka from Florida.
That's fun to say.
Who, if you Google, you'll see him doing a little bare knuckle boxing against Tennessee last year in the Florida-Tennessee game.
Mm-hmm.
Nice scrapper. How many times will they describe him and his tenacity on the offensive line? He's a scrapper. I'll show him the video, and I said, yes, he is.
Yep.
He got into
a
full-scale. He wanted to box in the Florida-Tennessee game. So,
hey, you like your lineman nasty.
He comes in as a guard. Ethan Piper last night at the Outland Banquet, along with Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer, and Kirk Ferentz was in town.
How's he doing? Did you talk to him?
Did not talk to him. Reese Morgan, former offensive line coach, was honored last night. So Kirk was in town. But here's the thing about Piper. He can come back. That injury, I mean, my gosh.
Shredded.
Well, he also had a broken hand during the course of the season.
True.
And good guy, just, him describing the knee injury, he tore 3 ligaments.
Yeah.
So his goal is to come back. Don't know what the timeline is because we're talking about a major, major knee injury. But with the addition yesterday of a guy who started at guard, could play some tackle, but I think he's going to play guard. You wonder what the whole guard position looks like this upcoming season. But, man, to hear Ethan Piper talk about the injury, holy cow. I mean, we knew it was bad, but then you hear him describe it, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Keep an eye on and Sip will break this down about Nebraska's offensive line next year. What the move from defensive line to offensive line does for Roquan Buckley.
Yeah.
Young guy who could figure out the guard position. They might have some depth. Nebraska, and this is constructing your roster and adding, and oh, by the way, I have a quarterback that I would like to protect.
Mm-hmm.
They could have some depth on the offense, like some true depth.
Right.
Not we'd like to have 8 guys.
Yeah.
They could have some true depth on the offensive line for the first time in a while in 2024. They also may have, for the first time since 21, when Hymas and Farniok got drafted, the potential to have 2 offensive linemen drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Mazuka didn't come to Nebraska to just hang out and get some NIL money and walk through the student union and have everybody cheer his name and play 12 games and get to go to the West Coast to play a football game. He came here so that he can go to the NFL. And you already know they're high on Benhart that his future is the NFL. But Nebraska have 2 guys drafted in what would be into the 25 NFL draft off the offensive line. Had it in 21. They've been few and far between of draft picks at the offensive line. But I think that Donnie believes that they will have 2 guys drafted next year if things work out and guys make progress. And Nebraska also has a good season. That has a lot to go into getting drafted.
It'd be fantastic. And the part about the depth thing is something that I've, even as the season ended, before you got the commitment from Mazuka too, that you started kind of looking at, all right, when you get some guys that are going to be in a position, again, Turner Corcoran coming back healthy, maybe.
Oh, I'm coming back, yes.
Yeah.
Where's he going to play?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, is he now
be the odd man out,
adding some depth maybe on the interior? What you're going to see from guys like, Justin Devin-Jenkins taking a step forward too after playing a little bit last year due to those injuries. So, I mean, guys that were thrown into the mix because of the injuries too, and then getting a few guys back. Now the addition of Mazuka too, who looks like a plug-and-play guy at guard. You start to look at not only, like you said, the idea, or in a perfect world, you'd love to have an ability to rotate guys in there. You got 8 guys or whatever, but now you're actually looking at some guys across the board that actually logged some significant minutes and some significant game time. So that also adding to that depth there. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. Now, where some of these guys fill in each spot, again, Turner Corcoran's an interesting one because I think we kind of know what that's like at tackle.
Well, you might have to stay at tackle because they're starting to build up some guards. It's not like they've avoided the tackle position, but they don't have as many established tackles, which is a little bit concerning. So he may have to stay at tackle just for the mere fact of we don't have many tackles right now that we can rely on.
Yeah, it's one of those times though that at least the offensive line is maligned as it's been, but as we saw that it improved at the end of the year, even with the injuries, that now all of a sudden you feel like you have some options and you have some guys that if they were to be thrown into the mix, again, like I think Justin Evans-Jenkins is a very interesting case on what he can do as far as how high they were on him, what he showed at times. The big question about Teddy Prohaska's offseason, how is that going to look too? Another guy that, had to play there with the Corcoran injury too, but it was something that we all kind of wanted to see. Now we want to see what he does in an offseason without having to rehab. I mean, there's a lot of things about guys, and then you got Ben Scott back. You take a look at the guys that are coming back. Bryce Benhart coming back. There's at least some solid experience there, but then also guys behind them that it'll be interesting to see how they fit in. Is Justin Evans-Jenkins going to be a starter?
Yes.
So then you look at, okay, then where does that put? Is Teddy Prohaska going to work himself into a starting position? We'll find out. Is Turner Corcoran, as you mentioned, is he going to remain a tackle? I mean, there are guys there that I think it's a good problem to have right now for the offensive line, knowing that you've now have some options. You've got time to be able to work them in relatively, for the most part, other than Ethan Piper, relatively for the most part, healthy too, to where you can start getting an early glimpse of that in spring and kind of mix and match and see what looks like it could be more of like the stable part of that offensive line.
We're going to have more with SIP coming up at 8:30. John into the Equitable Bank inbox would like to know if Deacon Hill wrestled in high school. It would be awesome to see.
What weight did he wrestle at?
It would be awesome to see the polar bear and Hill wrestle at 285.
Well, he didn't he come into Iowa at 285?
Yeah, when he was at Wisconsin.
Yeah. And I think wasn't that the Joe Kirk Ferentz said? He goes, if you don't lose weight, we're gonna stick you to offensive line.
Yeah. The place would sell out. I expect there'd be a big crowd there, but if it was Hutmacher is wrestling the Iowa quarterback, and it's in Lincoln,
could get it sponsored.
People would be losing their mind.
Hell, I'd want to go.
But I don't believe that Deacon Hill will be on a mat anytime soon. I said this going to the break. You guys laughed. So if you're just tuning in,
a lot.
Carroll and Sabin, monumental day in college football, pro football, and then Belichick and the Patriots have parted ways this morning. So Nick Saban, I mean, there's so many stats that are out there. The fact that they were favored and this streak was broken recently, in 92 straight games. Hello. You laughed. I'm convinced if it was Nick Saban University, he would be a blue blood in college football. Look at the All-Americans. Look at the first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
Nick Saban had 44 first-round draft picks at Alabama. He lost 29 games.
Yeah.
He also, look at the national championships. Look at the Heisman Trophy winners. Nick Saban University is a blue blood. There's also part of the Nick Saban experience.
I laughed just because I thought it was a very interesting way of putting it, of one coach being an actual blue blood institution, which those numbers don't lie.
But this is, we're bringing Nebraska into this conversation.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, Nebraska had a legend retired, and we went, what's next? Alabama's got a legend that is retired, and they go, uh-oh. But isn't it interesting that Alabama lays claim to two of the greatest legends in the history of college football?
Yeah, Bear Bryant.
And they didn't think that once Bear Bryant stepped down, they were ever going to be, worthwhile.
Yeah.
It took them, it was a long, winding path to get to Nick Saban, which look at, what was it? Bill Curry and Ray Perkins.
Ray Perkins and Bill Curry and then Stallings, who was
actually a stretch there where they weren't bad. It was like 57-25. A lot of schools would take that, but when you're replacing Bear Bryant, not good enough.
They had 8 and 3 years. They weren't happy.
Yeah, there's just like Sean Alexander
But then
years.
after that, there's a Shula in there.
Yeah.
And
Don.
There's Dennis Francione. And it wasn't good.
Mike Price for about a week.
But then you bring in Nick Saban. So it shows you in the world of college football, when you have a legend that retires or moves on, is how one really good decision can erase all of those bad decisions.
Yeah.
And the opposite when you think about it, because we've seen that too.
Now, we were lucky at Nebraska. You had a legend in Devaney who handed it off to a guy that eventually became a legend, but initially was not. Then look at the decision since then. T.O.'s decision with Frank. That was still one of the greatest Nebraska stories, is the fact that they kept that quiet.
Yeah.
They kept it quiet for over a year. Like, this was supposed to happen in 96. But then guys are like, nope, I'm coming back. All right, I'm coming back. But the fact that they kept that quiet is one of the more amazing Nebraska sports stories. So one good decision can erase a series of bad decisions. Nebraska was lucky to go back to back, but then we know what the nameplate has been changed so many times down in Lincoln, from Solich to Callahan to Pelini to Riley to Frost and now to Rule.
Yeah. And that was always the feeling. And I'm not trying to suggest that you would find your next Nick Saban at Nebraska, or even something even remotely close to that, because I don't even think it's fair for anybody to ever say the next Nick Saban is out there. To hold someone to that standard of 7 national championships and 6 with one institution, to me, in this day and age of college football, is unrealistic. But to provide stability, to provide a coaching tree that all of a sudden branches out and becomes successful head coaches in other stops too, and you also have this pathway to the NFL draft. I mean, it just basically becomes a machine. I always found it, and I've mentioned this on the show a few times, I always found it to be sort of a laughable conversation of, if Scott Frost couldn't do it, then who could? There was always going to be, and we hope it's Matt Rule, but there was always going to be somebody, again, coming back to just being able to make the right decision. How do you arrive at that decision? What did you do in the resources that you had to vet and to look at fit and to examine the current culture of college football and make sure you have a right guy for that as well? All of those things that go into the decision of being able to arrive to a decision and be able to have that guy running your football program, and then you start to see success. That guy was always going to be out there for every program, not just Nebraska too. There's that budding star. It's just a matter of being able to try to find them. Again, not to the Nick Saban level, but to the level that you can bring that type of success, however your football program, because I think every football program probably defines success a little differently, given where, maybe their past has been or where they, have recently been. But I always felt like, to just say that if Scott Frost can't do it because his passion, because he was a Nebraska guy, I always felt that was such a lazy cop-out answer of, well, then what? Nebraska should just cease to exist as a football program?
So look at this from the standpoint. So this discussion about one really good decision can erase some bad decisions. We're talking about Michigan too, right?
Yep.
I mean, Michigan went from Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr is not one of the GOATs, but Lloyd Carr was one of the best ever at Michigan. Oh, by the way, you come on the heels of Schembechler. But then they went through some bad decisions, and then they got one good decision that has erased all of those bad decisions, where Harbaugh's won a national championship, and you're fine. Which, ironically, if you see a picture or you purchase the commemorative issue of Sports Illustrated, the Michigan issue, have you guys seen what the front cover is? It is a Michigan offensive lineman holding.
Oh,
nice.
On a play that was not called on Monday night.
In a game that did have a couple missed holds and then one really tough hold against Washington.
Yeah, it's pretty clear the Michigan offensive lineman is grabbing onto the jersey of the Washington defensive lineman, as I think it's Corum that runs by.
Okay.
ACC
I thought you were going to say it was a picture of Jim Harbaugh with his fun sunglasses on.
So think about Nebraska. We're talking about blue blood programs. I mean, look at Miami. Miami hasn't. The Larry Coker thing. I mean, Coker and Solich share a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Okay, so Miami has been searching for over 20 years to find that right guy to make up for all of those bad decisions. You know a place that this discussion, and again, these are about blue bloods. Ohio State. Whether you poo-poo 56-7 and you're in the camp of Maurice Clarett that thinks Ryan Day should be shot to the moon, Ohio State actually has gotten it right post John Cooper.
Yeah.
So Earl Bruce was, all right, you replaced Woody Hayes.
Yeah.
I think Earl Bruce did a nice job.
Cooper wasn't bad either. He just couldn't beat Michigan.
Yeah. So Earl Bruce was 81-26. And then Cooper won 111 games, but yeah, he couldn't beat Michigan. Then you hire Tressel. What'd Tressel do?
He couldn't lose to Michigan.
Got you a national championship as well.
Pretty damn good. And then you went to Urban Meyer, and then you went to Ryan Day.
Yep.
So Ohio State's like rare in this discussion of replacing legends is Ohio State they don't really have any bad decisions. Maybe Ryan Day hasn't won a national championship and you're getting a little bit concerned, but my God, the guy's 56-7.
Right.
Yeah, he'd be unemployed for about 8 seconds.
Look at USC. So Greg Byrne and Pat Hayden have a lot in common. Greg Byrne's got to make the right decision. His dad, Bill, at Nebraska, never had the opportunity to hire a football coach because it was predetermined by T.O. that Frank was going to replace him. I asked Bill on his radio show towards the end of his tenure before he went to Texas A&M. He told the story of every AD has a list in the top drawer of a football coach because he used to say, what happens if my football coach walks out of the facility, walks across the street, and gets hit by a car?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to hire a football coach.
Yep.
Mac Brown was at the top of his list. So Bill didn't get to hire a football coach at Nebraska to replace a legend. His son, I think, does. I know people are like, oh, no, this is Saban's hire. He's vetted him. They'll probably consult with Saban. But this is a big moment for Greg Byrne that you can't mess up because look at Pat Hayden. Ironically, Pete Carroll. Pat Hayden had to make the decision after Pete Carroll left to go to the NFL. USC's still in a stretch of I'm not going to say bad decisions, but decisions that aren't close to what they had with Pete Carroll.
They're just there.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they were early to mid 90s when John Robinson came back.
But all you need is that one. Look at whatever sport. You just need that one that makes up for like 3 or 4 bad decisions as a coach. That's what happened at Alabama with Saban.
Look at Florida right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're in a stretch of bad decisions from Urban Meyer to Dan Mullen, Muschamp. Now they're on to Billy Napier, who I see that Florida fans are trying to move Napier.
They're like,
to
Billy
Tuscaloosa.
Napier would be great in Alabama. Come on.
Regular
Part
Mike DeBose.
part of that Saban coaching tree there. But it also,
You're not Tom. You're not Nick.
I would say that you're also looking at those decisions, having a little bit better opportunity hit rate wise and I guess if we are talking blue bloods, they're blue bloods for a reason. That means they have the resources, they have the funding, the support, everything infrastructure wise is there for you to succeed. It's just a matter of finding that person, which, as we have learned here, locally, that's not the easiest task. It's not as well. We've got everything a head coach would want, so let's let them come to us. There's obviously a lot that goes into that, but I think when you're looking at the programs that we're mentioning, with already having that type of infrastructure, I think it becomes at least a little bit more of a successful hit rate if you have the right. It comes down to who's making the decision, who's finding those
that's
people.
That's a good point, because I'm going to use Oklahoma as an example. We hold Joe Castiglione in high regard. Now, some of these hires were not his, but Oklahoma is like Alabama. They're trying to find that second legend.
Yeah, you're trying to find the next Stoops.
So you had Switzer. Barry is Barry.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't Bob Stoops make up for Gary Gibbs, Howard Schnellenberger, and John Blake?
Absolutely he did.
Okay.
Brought him back.
But then you had Lincoln Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lincoln Riley got you to the playoff. Lincoln Riley was 55-10 in Norman.
Yeah.
You didn't you thought you're going to continue like the Ohio State. You went from Bob Stoops, national championship coach, even though it's still wild that he only won one there.
Yeah.
That on the back end,
and early
the
too.
back end, they couldn't figure out how to get another one.
Big game Bob.
In Norman.
Wasn't even close to his best team.
But then you went, then you were like, hey, we're good here. We got Stoops. We're going to Riley. We're the Ohio State model that hands it off from, to Tressel to Meyer to Day. Now you're in a weird spot because you have Brent Venables.
Yeah. Who, I would still consider an OU guy because of his being a defensive coordinator for a while.
He can be an OU guy. He can be a guy that was unemployed, and he might be unemployed. Yeah. But is he the guy that is now back to bad decisions, and you have to go and figure out the next guy to erase that bad decision?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, he very well could be. I'm Venables to me is a guy that I think next year is going to be the ultimate tell of who he is, because you saw the kind of the early rise this season where it's like, okay, kind of erase some of the stink from the previous year, but then the way that they finished, this is a huge third year for him. And that's it. And I think a lot of people kind of forget about the Lincoln Riley stint because it was so short-lived because he was at USC. But you're right. You go from Stoops to that, and all of a sudden you feel like, okay, we've got that chain going. And now you've hit a little bit of a hiccup here with Brent Venables. Yet again, though, that's a program, a football program, and now going to the SEC that I feel like not only were you as a football program, as an athletic department, a lot of resources, there's so much care about that football program, but now you kind of amp it up even more so by going to the SEC, where I think even if it doesn't work in year 3 for Brent Venables, that will be a highly coveted job.
Oklahoma had an Iowa season this past year.
Yes.
Oklahoma won 10 football games.
It was
Oklahoma
very surface,
yeah. It
was very surface, yeah.
They went 2-3 against teams that finished ranked.
Mm-hmm. Crown and Jewels, Texas.
Steve Sipple coming up in the next hour, or within this hour. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
Mornings with Sharp and Handley returns in minutes on 1620 The Zone. Big names, big games. We've got them all. 1620 The Zone.
42 Degrees wants to start your year off right with hot deals on our top health and wellness products. Our best-selling Kratom extracts up to 20% off. Delta products starting at $4.99. You want to save up to 25% on the best premium flower in town? Then hurry down to any one of our 10 convenient locations and let the knowledgeable and friendly staff show you why 42 Degrees is the source for all your needs. By your mom's house.
Oscar's Pizza and Sports Grill is your home for the big game. Whether it's the NFL or a rivalry on the hardwood, you will find all the action on Oscar's top-of-the-line audio-video system. With 40 TVs and massive dual projectors, the game has never looked better. Pair that with their award-winning char-buffed wings and $7.99 Monday through Friday lunch specials. Oscar's Pizza and Sports Grill has everything you need. 173rd and West Center Road, and for takeout at 162nd and Maple.
Does eating at home have you singing the blues? Stop by Cobb's at the Shadow Lake Town Center, 180th and Center, or 72nd and Jones to grab a delicious pizza, burgers, fresh salad, and some tasty charred wings. They even offer keto crusts and an extensive variety of shareable appetizers. Dine in, carry out, or delivery. Cobb's, now with 3 convenient locations to serve you. Shadow Lake Town Center, 180th and Center, and 72nd and Jones. Click cobbspizza.com to see the menu, pizza, and so much more.
Hey folks, Kent Pavelka again to tell you about your local concrete experts at Everlevel Concrete Repair. Now, if you have cracked, uneven concrete, Everlevel can fix it at a fraction of the cost compared to replacement. This is no Band-Aid. Their products are built to last. It gives your concrete the durable protection it needs, and there's still time. I chose Everlevel for my driveway, and I've got peace of mind with their long-term transferable warranty. Everlevel's products and customer service are top-notch, and that's why they've been voted Best of Omaha again this year. Say it with me. Everlevel, Everlevel, Everlevel.
The world's on fire. Attacks in the Middle East, Ukraine and Russia at war. And right here, Joe Biden has created a dangerous threat to every American. Biden's open border policies have opened the floodgates to a record number streaming in, 12,000 in one day alone. This means increased terrorist threats and even more deadly fentanyl being delivered to our neighborhoods. President Trump will change that. He'll secure our borders by building even more wall. He'll end visitors from terrorist countries being allowed to enter. And Trump will treat the drug cartels the same as he treated terrorists who kill Americans. President Trump, the strength to protect our borders and our families.
I'm Donald Trump, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President 2024, Inc.
The Kansas City Chiefs playoff run starts right now.
Stick in the pocket to throw. Big chase and he's sacked. Who got it? Chris Jones! Got it!
Saturday night at GEHA Field at Arrowhead, the Chiefs host the Miami Dolphins on Wild Card Saturday. Pre-game starts at 6 on your home for Kansas City Chiefs football.
Chiefs Dolphins AFC wildcard game Saturday night at 6 on 1620 The Zone.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard. Takes too long.
Not with Babel. Babel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope, and they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babel doesn't take long. And with Babel, it isn't hard. It's perfect.
Start learning a new language today. Go to Babel.com. That's BABBEL.com. Babel.com.
1620 The Zone at 1620thezone.com. And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Dominic on the stream says, just tell me that James Franklin to Bama isn't a possibility.
It's not.
Because that would be...
there would be a domino effect, potentially. It's old Matt Rule.
Yeah, I see what he's getting at.
Yeah. At least potentially.
No, they would riot if they hired James Franklin.
the only... And I think you mentioned this in the 6 o'clock hour. This will just maybe bump James Franklin's pay at Penn State.
Which would be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But his buyout is really, really small. So his agent is smart. They're getting towards... you've been here for a while, you've done well enough, but maybe it's time to move on, and it won't cost a future employer much to buy you out. Like there's, why Dan Lanning is attractive is because of his background in the SEC. He was the defensive coordinator at Georgia. He has taken a lot of SEC mentality to Eugene, the way they play defense, the way they recruit. He's a lights out recruiter. He's embraced the portal. He's got some swag.
Yeah.
He's got a name. He's 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's appealing. But there's guys like Mike Norvell, Kalen DeBoer.
Well, there's a $4 million buyout, by the way, Mike Norvell.
Which, and you have some uncertainty. What's the future at Florida State?
And even though he's not an SEC guy, I mean, you're in that footprint right there, too, when it comes to recruiting.
He was at Memphis before. He knows the area.
Yep.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't blame if Dan Lanning decided to leave. I wouldn't blame him. Take the opportunity to go to Alabama. Okay, we'd all do that. That's what we do in life. All right, a better opportunity comes along. You can be as loyal as you want, but if an opportunity comes along that looks like it's better than your job, or it's something that is enticing and want to do at that point in your life, go for it. Go for it.
Timing is everything.
I do. Hey, no offense to either one of you. I do the same thing in this business.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you the same thing.
I do
tell
it,
anyone that.
I do it tomorrow.
Everybody.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I do it tomorrow. So I don't blame him. But I don't want to hear people say, well, no, it's Alabama. You're not Nick. Man, I want the guy that says, okay, I'm not Nick, but my name is Dan, and I can coach football, and I can come in, and I can use what's here and then put my stamp on it.
Mm-hmm.
The question about the Alabama job, and the same thing happened at Nebraska, and I think to the day still happens at Nebraska. It happens at places where legends depart. Was the Alabama a great job, or did Saban make it a great job?
Saban made it a great job.
Because the Texas job is better than Alabama. The Georgia job is better than Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hire the right guy, that job is better than any job. What Saban did, he has made it the best job because of who he is, the infrastructure that he built, and the brand that only continued to grow.
Yeah.
That's the challenge that you have when you're not Nick in the new role as the head coach at Alabama.
Right. You're keeping that going. You're keeping that going in an ever-changing college football world, but it is also a college football world that does benefit teams and programs. I think we can even move from calling them programs to organizations. I know that's what Nick Saban always referred to it as well. But organizations are programs like Alabama. So it's not like as college football is changing into this new era where we might get this new subconference or subdivision, that it's all of a sudden going to be a burden for programs like Alabama. It's only going to help them because this is where the rich have a chance to get richer. Now, the things about the Alabama brand that Nick Saban has brought, those things is that's a must, and that is winning regularly and being able to get guys to the league. And I don't see that. And this is what I was thinking about last night when people were kind of losing their minds over the, now the 30-day transfer portal window with Alabama. If I'm at Alabama, whether I'm a current player or I'm a recruit, this again goes back to what Nick Saban has made that job. I don't know if all of a sudden, I'm gone. Because I would be extremely intrigued on who they're bringing in. Because I know it's not probably someone I'm unfamiliar with. Chances are I've probably been recruited by the guy they're bringing in, or at least am extremely familiar with that person or members of that person's coaching staff that they would likely bring in with them. So there are certain jobs that if your head coach leaves and you're a current player, you're like, don't like that at all. Because your program is not in a spot that they can just about land anyone that is going to be not only the next best thing, but a very good fit. That's not the case in a lot of different programs. So I understand that being a concern. Place like Alabama, if I'm a player right there, as much as it sucks to not have our guy there and someone that is just synonymous with Alabama football and winning and everything that comes with that brand, I would also be very intrigued, dare I say, excited about what the next chapter looks like and being a part of that.
I don't know. You got to get in the head of 18 to 22-year-old kids,
which is tough to do as a 44-year-old.
Yeah, that's
for 44-year-old Nick. I feel like that's how I would feel. I would do.
But the reason it's a really, 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 really good job. Hell, it might be the best job in the history of college football when you've had two of the greatest to go in there. Is that they invest to be the best.
Yes,
there's an investment.
You have everything you'll ever need.
Yep. All right, Steve Sipple coming up in a little bit. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com. Live from the Host Coffee Studio. This is 1620 The Zone. 1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Zoom Drain Time-Saving Traffic Center. That earlier accident on the I-680 northbound off-ramp to I-80 causing pretty severe delays between I-80 and Dodge at this time. If you're heading in that direction, do expect lots of delays. And speaking of Dodge, if you're traveling eastbound between 180th and 144th, some slow-moving traffic there as well. Remember to stay safe and wear those seatbelts. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by IBEW Local 22.
The electrical market requires your company to adjust to an ever-changing field. IBEW Local 22 gives you flexibility with access to journeymen, apprentices, and proven training programs. Call Bob at IBEW Local 22 for details at 402-980-7596.
Your Omaha Maverick hockey team is coming off a tournament win at the Desert Hockey Classic, and they are red hot. The Mavs start their 2024 home campaign against the top 10 ranked Denver Pioneers January 19th and 20th. And the Maverick men's basketball team takes on North Dakota on January 11th and North Dakota State on January 13th. Let's pack the Baxter. Get your tickets now. Call the box office at 402-554-MAVS or by going to omavs.com/tics.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. HIMS.com/RADIO.
Hi, everybody. Kent Pavelka here with why I chose Everlevel Concrete Repair for my driveway. They do it all. They fix cracks, lift sunken slabs, protect the finished product from deterioration, and all at a fraction of the price of replacement. It's not a Band-Aid like other repair methods. Everlevel's products are designed to last, which is why they've been voted Best of Omaha again this year. Better yet, it all comes with a transferable warranty. Protect your concrete before winter. Call Everlevel today for your free inspection. Everlevel. They make your driveway Everlevel. Level up.
How much do you worry about your debt?
With over $15,000 I owe, constantly it keeps me awake at night.
Accelerated debt settlement can cut your debt by up to 85% and in as little as 7 to 12 months.
I could be free of debt in no time?
That's right. Other debt settlement companies can take years to negotiate down your debt, but accelerated debt settlement moves fast.
The sooner I don't have to stress about my debt, the better.
Exactly. In just months, Accelerated Debt Settlement's legal team will negotiate your unsecured debt down 60, 80, even 100%. Your debt from credit cards, student loans, timeshares, medical expenses, and more cut down 60, 80, even 100%. And you'll save thousands of dollars in interest payments.
Finally, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
And a good night's sleep.
Now get free of debt in a year or less with Accelerated Debt Settlement. Just call 1-888-508-8051 and we'll get to work for you. That's 1-888-508-8051. 1-888-508-8051.
KOZ and Bellevue, Omaha, Council Bluffs. This is 1620 The Zone. Now back to mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
All right, SIP's coming up here in a little bit. Can you guys explain one thing to me now that we're focusing more on college basketball? And there is chaos, and there is fun, and there is social media jabbing. If you've seen, go to Central Florida's basketball Twitter account. Have you seen it, Jimmy, as a KU fan?
I have seen that. I've seen the things they did yesterday, and good for them.
Can you guys explain to me the Doug McDaniel suspension at Michigan? So Michigan, Louisville's in trouble, even though they won last night on the road at Miami. But Michigan is an absolute dumpster fire on and off the floor. And Juwan Howard isn't going to make it. But Doug McDaniel is suspended, and he chose his own suspension. He is only suspended for, he's suspending himself for 6 games, and it's only the road games, which includes a game in Lincoln. What is going on in Ann Arbor with basketball?
Dysfunction, maybe? I'm just looking.
Just bring John Beeline back. Saw him the other night as an analyst during one of the games when we were here. So that thing's broken. And I'm with you. Juwan Howard, farewell tour.
I mean, Northwestern and Minnesota have a better conference record right now than Michigan.
Minnesota.
Yeah. That game on the 20th in Lincoln, Chris Collins, man, Northwestern won at Penn State. I know it's Penn State, but they had not won there in a while. And Wisconsin won last night, so Wisconsin's the only unbeaten team in the Big Ten. So all we thought, we thought all along, Nebraska, Northwestern, Minnesota, Wisconsin would be right in the mix with the Purdue's and Illinois. Big game tonight in the league, Michigan State and Illinois.
Yes.
Wisconsin and Purdue play twice. Those would be must-watch games. I imagine one of them will be on the Peacock.
If they know it's good for them, it will be. Just watching and looking at the conferences right now, but also watching just some of the games here lately. Like Ohio State is another team that, athletically, you see what they are, and you're like, okay, well, Ohio State is a decent basketball team, but again, they're a team that is kind of hit or miss. Like right now, the Big Ten, and even what we saw with Purdue. Now, Purdue's 2 losses are now to unranked teams, but just looking at where Nebraska is, and this is just kind of, again, the lingering hangover of it, it makes you more excited. At least I know we got into this yesterday too, as far as where the conference standings are right now, and people are starting to put out expectations all of a sudden because Nebraska beats Purdue. But I don't think a lot of that is necessarily unfounded because of just all of a sudden being lost in the moment of that victory against Purdue. I think if you do really look at, again, college basketball last night, we talked about this yesterday, and then we had more stuff happen last night with Kansas losing to a Central Florida team that's not great. And I'll start pumping the brakes.
Respect on Johnny Dobbins' name.
Well, and I'll admit it too, because I know you guys, at least you did, Gary, kind of pushed back earlier in the year when I said, I don't know, KU to me is still a national championship contending team. They've got 4 good players. Outside of that, even their 5th,
they had trouble with the zone last night. They were blowing out Central Florida. Central Florida went to a zone, and I was like, "Whoa!" It's like KU had not seen it. Now, Hunter Dickinson, I think, is dinged up. I think his back is bothering. Yeah. He usually gives you about 33 to 35 minutes. He played under 30 last night, but still, unless DeJuan Harris gets more involved, which I would want him to, I'm not sold on KU.
I think McCullers is having a better year than I thought he would, but you mentioned Harris.
McCullers been the best player on that team.
He has. And Adams,
maybe the second best player,
is very athletic. But again, are you getting that constant production? And then their rotation, whoever, whether it's Furphy or whoever they're trying to get in off the bench there, it's very hit or miss. And you've seen some signs here recently, even when they kind of eked out against TCU. So I will say I think you guys are onto something, or at least you're onto something about maybe kind of pumping the brakes a little bit on Kansas.
Well, I think it's just part of the whole. I don't think.
But I think that's college basketball.
I don't think there's a dominant team in college basketball. But boy, UConn has my attention.
But therein lies why.
So Creighton and UConn play next Wednesday in Stores. Creighton or UConn could be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
They might be the closest to a dominant team in college basketball this year. Because I don't think there is. And so you get the nightly chaos, which is great this time of the year, that once we get to March and we're like, I can't wait, it usually goes away.
Yeah.
What we can't wait for is when Nebraska and Iowa play next year. I alluded to this because the coaches' poll, their final poll has been released. And Matt Rule voted in the coaches' poll. Matt Rule did not vote Iowa anywhere. There is no Hawkeye logo on his top 25 ballot.
Just like Brian Ferentz had no.
Our friends across the river are losing their mind. You know where I would be losing my mind? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Against really good teams, Iowa didn't score, right?
Correct.
Okay. I was just checking. because Barry Odom voted him 15th. You know what this tells me? Is that Matt Rule takes his voting responsibilities seriously.
Does his research.
But we are getting it this morning. People are lambasting Rule for not putting Iowa in the top 25.
Because everybody had them in the top 25.
Rule looks at football differently.
And he listens to the station. Good morning, Matt.
Do you know what? Hey, so hold on here. This just popped in my head. Let's go. I love
that face. He looks at
didn't-
football differently.
Didn't Nebraska score more points against ranked teams than Iowa did this year?
Yes, that is
And
true.
Iowa had the worst offense since, I don't know, Devaney was playing cards, in some saloon in Wyoming.
They averaged
I might have been
15
stretching that
They
a little
averaged
bit.
15
I'm going
points
back
a
to
game.
the 60s and the 50s. Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I mean, we can go over the. Do you want me to run down the scores again?
No,
Okay.
I know what the scores are.
Okay.
92-0.
Yeah.
That was easy. Good, Matt.
Iowa fan, you beat Nebraska, okay? The fact that the Nebraska head coach knows what he's doing when it comes to looking at polls and who teams are good, and he didn't put you in the top 25, just worry about your basketball coach, okay? All right. Okay. You're going to be good next year. You're going to have a really good defense. You might have the best defense in college football. Yeah. If you're triggered by Nebraska's coach not including you in the top 25, then focus on the guy at UNLV because he ranked you 15th.
Yeah, that's a
wait a
stretch. That's a stretch.
Barry Odom's a Missouri guy.
Holgerson had a vote, and he had Iowa at 19.
So see, it cancels it out. Average it out, 22nd.
Wait, Ryan Day had Iowa pretty high.
What do you
These guys not watch the bowl game?
What do you have, Matt?
I think he has him at 17. Wait, James Franklin had him high too.
I can see. So
who else hates Iowa?
I could see Penn State doing that because they.
I wonder what Matt Campbell ranked.
Think about it, though. If you're James Franklin, you blame
Kevin Wilson didn't rank Iowa.
Oh, okay, all right.
Y'all better be marching down to Tulsa. Isn't that where Kevin Wilson is? Yeah.
I understand James Franklin doing it though, because that was one of your big wins, 31-0. So you're going to say, yeah, hell yeah, we beat a top 20 team right there.
Using your premise, they should have been in the top 10 then.
Well, you can't go overboard though. You got to make it sound a little bit credible. All of a sudden, your vote, you start losing credibility. Yeah, somewhere in between top 25, top 10, if you're going the James Franklin method there.
There's some interesting coaches that vote in this. Marcus Freeman did not have Iowa in the top 25.
Oh.
Matt Rule, his top 25.
I'd be curious where Wisconsin.
Let me count here. This is kind of hard to. So he had Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, Missouri, Oregon, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Arizona, Penn State, LSU, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Clemson, Oklahoma, K-State, Tennessee, KU, North Carolina State, West Virginia, Louisville, SMU, and I think that's Liberty was his 25th team.
Yes, KU in the top 20. Love me some Matt Rule.
Liberty's better than Iowa.
And that's the main takeaway here.
Book it.
Steve Sipple joins us next.
Gary Sharp, Nick Handley, and Jimmy Chavez. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Weekdays 6 to 10. On 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com. Previously on Unsportsmanlike Conduct.
Will this be a tainted championship? In my opinion, it will be, yes. The fact that you had a coach literally sit out 6 games this year, this type of a scandal actually affected the play on the field to some degree. To what degree, we don't know. This scandal has to do with affecting the outcome on the field.
Unsportsmanlike Conduct with John Bishop and Josh Peterson. Weekdays 2 to 6 on 1620 The Zone. Your Omaha area forecast from the Godfather's Pizza Weather Center and KETV Newswatch 7 on 1620 The Zone.
Dry for most of Thursday with partly to mostly cloudy skies, highs around 20. Winter storm warning goes into effect late in the day with snow moving in mainly after 6 p.m. in the Omaha metro. Snow continues overnight, heavy at times, and will still linger into Friday morning. Expect storm totals around 4 to 7 inches in the Omaha metro, with wind chills 10 to 15 below zero Friday. I'm meteorologist Sean Everson from KETV News Watch 7.
1620, The Zone. Traffic.
From the Zoom Drain Time-Saving Traffic Center. Things moving slow I-680 northbound between Pacific and Dodge, as well as on Dodge eastbound between 168th and 144th. And if you're traveling I-80 westbound between I-480 and 72nd, it might be a little slower over there as well. And just remember, throughout the city, there will be some slick areas from the weather. Just proceed with caution, stay safe, and wear those seatbelts. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by the Nebraska Lottery.
Someone just won a beautiful new blue truck by playing Trucks and Bucks 2023. So there are only 2 trucks left. Better get to a Nebraska Lottery retailer, buy a ticket, and play today. Top prize odds, 1 in 336,000.
You can find pizza anywhere. But when you want pizza pie piled high with more toppings, that's when you come to my place, Godfather's Pizza. For a limited time, get your hands on 2 of my large one-topping pizzas. Pick pepperoni, beef, black olives, you choose. All this food for only $30. Feed your whole mob without breaking the bank. Hey, it's an offer you can't refuse. Godfather's Pizza. Do it.
Creighton Sports Update. Creighton men's tennis kicks off the 2024 year with a home contest against North Dakota Friday at noon at the Hanscom Indoor Tennis Center. Creighton men's basketball returns home to the CHI Health Center Omaha Saturday at noon. St. John's Convention Center. Women's basketball returns to DJ Sokol Arena Sunday at 1 p.m. for a contest with Providence.
1620 The Zone proudly supports Creighton Athletics.
There's a reason people are joining the movement behind Nikki Haley.
She's a very, very successful governor.
Haley shows us what American foreign policy looks like with the spine.
Your family deserves a president with grit and grace, a different style, not a name from the past. Nikki Haley will secure our border, restore our economy, and make our nation respected once more. Listen to Nikki Haley.
Our moment is now. Our mission is clear. Let's save our country and secure our future, and let's move forward together toward our destiny in a strong and proud America.
Iowa, it's time to caucus. Go to nikkihaley.com/Iowa to learn more. And on Monday, January 15th, don't forget to caucus for a new generation of conservative leadership. That's nikkihaley.com/Iowa.
I'm Nikki Haley, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Nikki Haley for president.
Hey everyone, Josh Peterson here from my friends at Kugler Vision. As we move on into 2024, I know so many of you out there have New Year's resolutions for what is next. Why not a resolution for improved vision? At Kugler Vision, they can change your life in a matter of minutes. It was 6 years ago when I went in for my consultation, the beginning of 2018, and then I had the procedure done that February, changed my life. 6 years later, so happy that I made that decision. You can do so today. Go to their website, kuglervision.com.
Did you know that radon is the #1 cause of lung cancer for non-smokers and that our region has some of the highest levels in the country? Radon Defense Midwest can test and fix your home. Visit radonradio.com for an exclusive offer for 1620 The Zone listeners. That's radonradio.com.
And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
All right, the resident rocker, acclaimed journalist from 93.7 The Ticket and on3.com is the one and only Steve Sipple on a Thursday morning. Morning, Sip.
How are we doing, guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you. Hey, quick question, because I'm trying to rack my brain to remember, because I know you were not fully on the Nebraska beat, but you were at the Journal-Star. Do you recall what that day was like in December of 97 when T.O. said he was retiring?
I was covering it. I don't know. When you're like a sports writer in that situation, you're really, I don't know. It can be a little myopic, in that you're covering just that immediate team. And I wasn't out and about in the public. You know, I don't know, just a lot going on. I do remember how emotional it was for the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you remember, I think that you could find photos of players in tears, and I mean, it was an incredible day. So, and I think now this is where I could get myself in trouble. I remember it as being somewhat of a surprise.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're going back quite a ways, but it wasn't like everybody saw it coming. Now I do now I'm thinking back. We did, you know, Ken Hamilton was the beat writer, the main beat writer, and I was like a secondary beat writer at the time. And we were hearing some things that would suggest it could happen. I think there was a level of dismissal. You know, we were like, but then boom, it happened, and it was a monumental day for sure.
So would you classify yesterday as a monumental day with Saban retiring?
Yeah, it's the whole picture is interesting to me because I've heard a lot of national writers, like Bruce Feldman, saying it was a surprise to him. It wasn't. I mean, I've been saying on our show for a few weeks. I'm looking for it because I've been hearing stuff from in the coaching realm.
I think you called it right.
Yeah, they were reaching out to people, and they were reaching out to guys that were, you know, not 45. I mean, they were reaching out to older guys, and you know, they weren't reaching out to them for 2025. I mean, I wasn't surprised by it. I kind of expected it, but it doesn't lessen the magnitude. It's a huge. I mean, it's just gigantic. You know, moving on.
Yeah, and that was I think the takeaway I had was, okay, I think there was always going to be initial shock, Sip, because of what Nick Saban has meant to college football. And so I don't even know if I say surprise, but shock. But isn't that, again, anytime you have that type of announcement, that sort of puts you in a rare category where it's such a shock because of your contributions to the sport and being, I don't think it's even debatable, being the greatest of all time as a head football coach at the collegiate level.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to me that when we talk about surprise and shock and how you feel, what I would say is it hasn't even set in.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I think it's in my opinion, or the way it works in my mind, is it sort of evolves. I mean, the way you regard this news evolves. Like right now, yeah, it feels big, but I think it might feel bigger in 3 days. Well, they might have a new coach by then too. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, the magnitude of it is such that it's hard to put it in proper perspective.
Yeah.
Do you expect Dana Holgorsen to be involved in Nebraska football in 2024?
Oh, I mean, there's some elements of that scenario that I just don't know. Like, what does he have other options? And what are those other options? I mean, I guess the best thing I can do is tell you what I know, and I know he was in Lincoln for an appreciable amount of time over the weekend. I mean, he spent a lot of time here. Spent a lot of time with key people. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he's part of the deal. I think it could be as an analyst, but again, those conversations, they can evolve. I mean, what I was hearing yesterday would suggest analyst, but it doesn't mean it's done, and that I'm 100% on that. I'm just telling you what I came away from a couple of phone calls thinking it sounds more like analyst. Again, we'll see. I will say this: I expect Satterfield to be the OC next year. Now, then where it goes from there, it could be different things. You could have co-coordinators, right? There could I don't know how it will be shaped in its final form. But I guess as I sit here right now, Holgorsen has the feel of an analyst, and I do think Satterfield will be an offensive coordinator next year.
So I've heard analysts as well. And then yesterday it was announced that in June will be the NCAA vote on analysts being able to be on field, which Rule has alluded to that I think would change a lot of coaching staffs where you could have analysts who are former head coaches that can be involved. Okay, one more thing here on the staff. So names that are out there. I agree with you. Satterfield will still be involved with coordinating ability, but I don't think that he will have his hands on the quarterback. You think by the time that they reconvene on campus, which is actually, well, I shouldn't say because that's coming up, it's this weekend, but by the time that school starts on the 22nd, Rule will have his any staff changes in place?
I mean, I think that's what you'd want. I think that's what you'd shoot for as a head coach. But I've covered these things a lot over the years. It just doesn't always work out that way because there's other, there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of variables, and it just doesn't always fall into place like that. But yeah, I think Nebraska starts winter conditioning on January 14th, and then school begins January 22nd. So yeah, I think this is the time to, if you're going to make a change, it's going to happen now around this time.
Yesterday's news, and I know again with what was going on in college football, and even to an extent the NFL world with Pete Carroll as well as Nick Saban, but the Micah Mazuka news, it's, for the most part, kind of was a little bit under the radar, but this doesn't feel like a small deal, especially given what you're replacing. What does this do offensively for Nebraska when you think about what this offensive line from a depth standpoint is also looking to accomplish, as well as being able to plug and play a guard?
Oh yeah, this is a plug and play. I don't think this is about depth. I think this is about a guy coming in. I think this is a starting guard. I think that's why you bring him in. I don't. It's he's got to go. He's got to go play and practice, and you have an old school offensive line coach in place. He's gonna have to prove it. He's gonna have to come in and assimilate and work hard. But I would think if he does all those things, he has 21 starts. At 2 Power 5 schools. I think 11 at Florida, 10 at Baylor, and he was good at Florida. He graded well in Pro Football Focus. He's a vicious type competitor. That mindset, I think, would work really well with Donovan Raiola. So, no, I agree with you. It did fly under the radar a little bit. I think it's another. I think what's happening before our eyes here is Nebraska is doing an outstanding job in bringing in portal players. I would call it outstanding right now, and I think we're going to get. And then maybe people say we're really outstanding. Well, I say that in the context. I think more's coming. I think they got a great shot at Jamal Banks and a great shot at Stephon Thompson. And if those two happen, like I think they will, then yeah, it's outstanding. It's what they've done is add, a few starters. All these guys I look at like, okay, they're going to play prominent roles.
So let's stick with that because you know what, Sip? I'm with you. I think Jamal Banks is going to commit to Nebraska.
Did he do it already?
I'm 105% sure that he just committed in the last minute.
Literally happened.
Okay.
Oh God. Okay.
So let's stick with that. So Nebraska gets a guy who led Wake Forest in receiving last year. He caught 59 passes, 653 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's 6'3", about 205. You and I are brothers from another mother, but we like the big-bodied wide receivers. You mentioned Thompson, the linebacker from Syracuse, who, was a target of Nebraska, and it looks like he's the next to commit. I'm with you. They have had a really, really good portal season. This isn't going to be the Lane Kiffin portal king, but for what Nebraska needs to fix deficiencies of either what happened last year or guys that have departed, they've done very well. Take out like McCord and Fleming of guys that we know publicly that Nebraska went down the path with. They're going like 3 for 3, 4 for 4, 5 for 5. Why do you think they have been so successful in the last couple of weeks in the portal?
I think that people like Jamal Banks. Well, I know this because I've seen it, seen him quoted. He sizes up the entire operation. I don't want to act like I don't. I've talked to the father of Dante Dowdell. I've seen a quote from Banks. they size up the entire operation, and it's good, and that includes the NIL operation. But players are treated really well here, and Matt Rule's very. I think a lot of it stems from the way the leader conducts himself. Everybody knows he's an alpha. The messages are very clear to players, and then the players in the program are good recruiters because they feel good about what's going on. It is. I mean, I believe if you're, I know some people get very jaded and cynical, and you know, you hear that another off season championship for Nebraska, but I don't get into all that. I think not all the time. I have. In the Riley era, I was that guy. But I think what's happening right now is very real, and the reason you can say it is because these guys like Banks, he did it. He did it in the ACC. Yeah. He had back-to-back 600-yard seasons. He had 9 touchdowns, not 9 touchdown catches in 2022, and pretty much equaled that season yardage-wise in 2023. And I've watched him on film. I know what he did against Florida State. He's not a burner, but he's gonna go up and get balls against, you know, smaller corners or corners in general. He's proven. So is Nayor. It's different. It's a little different conversation because Nayor couldn't crack the lineup at Texas. But if you go back and watch his Wyoming film, how could you not be excited by what you see on that film? 12 touchdown catches, 44 catches, 898 yards, not in a passing offense. You see the speed and the size and just the overall ability. The receiver room, if you just look at that, you go from, I thought when they had Nayor, okay, this is going to help. Now you go from that to, wow, you're adding Nayor and Banks to this group of young guys that has a lot of promise. And you start thinking about who's trotting out there. And, you know, Malachi and Jaden Dawson and Jalen Lloyd. You got some dudes now. I mean, some serious dudes. I'm not talking about Ohio State. It's not elite, but it's a big upgrade from what we saw last year. I'd say a massive upgrade.
Well, I'm glad you brought the freshmen and I should say the sophomores to be, especially with Lloyd Malachi, who played, you know, more than 4 games last year. How big it was to get not only Nayor but Banks in there, what is going to be a very key sort of step forward year. I don't even say development year because I think that was last year for those guys. A step forward year. If you look at who is likely throwing in the football, but also what you have helping you out there between Nayor and Banks.
Helping you out.
So just as far as how big is that addition now with knowing the Banks news is official, you add not one but 2 big-bodied receivers in the development, or at least the opportunity for those receivers, those young receivers, to now step forward?
I would think that would be very helpful. I would think. I mean, you never quite know, but just, again, watching Banks and Nayor on film, understanding what they've been through, understanding what they've done, already performing at a high level, and then, you know, just seeing what they do, I would think that would be very beneficial to a relatively young room. I got to think Malachi would look at a guy like Banks and say, I can be like that. I mean, Malachi is a little different than Banks because Malachi's got serious speed. Banks doesn't really have that separating speed, but I mean, Banks can show Malachi. He can teach him about, I'd say, toughness and intensity and fighting for tough balls in the end zone. I mean, what you see from Banks is he'll fight. He'll fight he'll make tough catches because he just fights for the ball. I don't know. You can tell. I like those additions a lot. I like big-bodied receivers. Nebraska has not had enough of them in the last 4 or 5 years, and now here we are. You know, it's Rule's done. I think Rule has done a really good job of bringing in guys who fit the Big Ten.
Would you also say we haven't had in a while a head coach that is as aggressive to fix holes like he has been since the season ended?
Well, aggressive is the word I think of really with Rule when it comes to about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, certainly he is. He seems. Come on, I mean, I think we've learned enough about Rule now. Is he doesn't do anything. It doesn't feel willy-nilly. It doesn't feel like I don't. There's been coaches here where I kind of like hoped they were doing the right thing, and I just kind of hoped it, and I didn't know. It's becoming more with Rule. Like I know what he's going to get. He'll take care of it, or he'll really try hard to do it. But man, I mean, convincing these guys to come in here, convincing Nayor that you're good here. You don't have to go visit Miami. Banks had options. I don't know. I think Dowdell had to have options.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think what Rule's done is he's presenting a really good picture to these guys, it's very real. It's not a manufactured picture.
There's also a sense of urgency, which you don't normally get after year number one. But I think he realized, because I've heard him talk, I think he realized that they have something, and he owes it to those guys in the room, the fans in the stands, and himself and his staff, that they're going to get this going quicker than they probably imagined. And they have the ability to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you wonder too where we haven't even mentioned Dylan Raiola. I mean, I do think this is. I know that's a big part of it.
Oh yeah, he changed the timeline.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Now, I do think he did, but I also think Rule was struck last year by the intensity of this place, and that he came to a place that there's not as much patience. It's maybe you'd like. I mean, there's really, and I think I'm pretty sure you're struck by that. But I just think again, it goes back to the word aggressive. Rule's aggressive. I mean, I think he's in a. I also think college football's in a place now where if you're aggressive, things can turn more quickly than they used to. Washington being a great example of that.
Yep. I appreciate it. Tip, thank you. Look forward to your thoughts on Jamal Banks on on3.com.
Yeah, they should be up there by now, I hope.
Whoa.
Already had it ready to rock and roll. Foreshadowing.
Hey, how does that work? You'll have to explain.
Man, you are good.
Hey, thank you, my friend.
All right, see you later.
That's Sip from 93.7 The Ticket.
He's just typing away while we're talking.
On3.com.
Yeah, they literally just came over as we were talking about him, and he said, yeah, I feel good about.
Big pickup for Nebraska.
Went out on a limb.
Hey, so a guy that readily admits he's a defensive guy. He has some issues on offense. He wasn't enamored by Satterfield's creativity or lack thereof. You tried to fix it, and then you got the fixer and Dylan Raiola saying, Coach, man, I'm thinking maybe Nebraska's a place for me. And things changed.
Mm-hmm.
Look at I always say Dylan can be an All-American, but what about the other 10 guys on the field? So he says, you know what? I assessed our season. We weren't that good offensively. We gotta get some new ideas in here before we talk about players. Hello, Dana Holgerson.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just chat. Let's exchange some ideas. Now look how far down the road we are with that. Yeah. And I think that train is really picking up steam. And then you say, what do we need on offense? More competition, more bodies, more ready-made players, and we have the ability to go get them with a quarterback who we owe his commitment to follow through.
Yeah.
And so that you don't have a crappy 5-7 season.
Yeah.
And then boom, you get what they've gotten over the last couple of weeks. They legitimately have a shot now to go 5 for 5, because I think Thompson is close to committing to Nebraska, and he's the linebacker that played under Tony White at Syracuse. I don't think he's a middle guy. Everything I've seen is he's an edge guy, and that's an area where I looked at two guys last night and I thought, man, Reimer is a big loss. They need something in the middle. But
good dude to have.
But they have a chance to all their portal guys to hit on. That you can do that when you have a plan. When you have a plan, and you're like, this is what we need you to do. This is what we have. This is where we see you. Yay or nay? Do you like me or not? If you don't, let's move on. If you like me, let's get it going. And that's what they're doing. Banks is a significant pickup for Dylan Raiola and that wide receiver room. because there's going to be some guys that are going to be scrapping for minutes and snaps that maybe played a little bit more last year, and now you're on the clock.
Yep.
You either do what we need you to do, or you can watch the game with me and play periodically.
Yeah, and I won't even say
that's that. When you get to that point with the program, man, you might be starting to cook with some peanut oil.
I won't even say they did the hardest part, but you've accomplished a very key part in what they're trying to do offensively in supporting Dylan Raiola, because I'm 100% with you as far as you cannot look back at the addition of Dylan Raiola in 2 years and still have sort of a lackluster record and say you had a miss here, you had a miss there, or you didn't address this position, you didn't address that position, where, like we've talked about before, you have a quarterback that is so talented that you just put it on him to sort of mask any type of deficiencies that they maybe fall short on when trying to go through talent evaluation. We don't know how these receivers are going to ultimately impact Nebraska on the field, but what we know is they fill very key roles. And you think about the downfield passing attack, and you think of a lot more 50-50s. You watch Nayor's film and you watch Jamal Banks' film. These are guys that can go up and get it. These are guys that can get separation on the edge. These are guys that can be huge in this offense. And I immediately think of a guy like Jalen Lloyd, who's a home run hitter, and what that can do for his development in year two, what that can do for Malachi Coleman. I thought Sip brought up a good point of working along with Banks, saying this is the type of guy can be a guy who's already played 4 years. And then you look at Jaden Doss, who's ready to kind of take a big step forward this year for that young group of receivers too. And then, Dylan Raiola can now look at a group of guys behind him with Dante Dowdell and other running backs that have played a lot of minutes, that have played a lot of games. And then you can look at the guys you're throwing to. And let's not forget Thomas Fidone and the tight ends. This is okay.
They have holes on offense, and they've gone about
They've addressed them.
They've constructed stuff in the offseason that eliminates. They've constructed a roster that gives you options, but they also eliminate excuses. If your running back coach says, well, no, I got you somebody. Your wide receiver coach says, they're not listening to me. Well, I got you older guys.
Mm-hmm.
Make them listen to the older guys.
Yep.
It's
a plan. It's a plan.
I think I look at it from this. They had success enough to get a taste. Sip's right. Rule will allude to a couple of things about, there's a lot of guys on the sidelines, man. There's a lot of people that are around the program, little things that he hasn't experienced anywhere else. That is eye-opening to him. But I think the taste of winning and then the disappointment of not making a bowl game is going to turn out to be a good thing. Actually, it's going to turn out to be a really good thing for how Rule is approaching this beast that he's done a good job of feeding the last couple of weeks. All right. Coming up in the last hour, we'll talk to Brad Edwards on Alabama and what is next and what Saban leaves behind. Also, Brian Edwards will try and not leave money behind for all of you. He'll have thoughts on the Super Wildcard Weekend that's coming up. That's all before we turn it over to the Connor Happer Show at 10 on 1620 The Zone.
More with Gary and Nick after this on 1620 The Zone. For the Jays, the Huskers, and even you Jayskers, we are 1620 The Zone.
Hey, Tapper for the FanDuel Sportsbook. It is finally here. NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. 6 games, 3 days, and it's win or go home. But for you, you'll always have a spot in the playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Are you going to bet against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? Are you going to bet against the Eagles in the playoffs? Maybe you should. What if you want to hop on the bandwagon of the upstart Detroit Lions? You can do all that in the Wildcard Weekend with the FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed, and all you have to do is place your first $5 bet. So whether those bets win or they lose, it's still bonus bets for you. Just visit FanDuel.com/Happer and join today. FanDuel.com/Happer. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and over, present in Iowa. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF.
Hey folks, Kent Pavelka again to tell you about your local concrete experts at Everlevel Concrete Repair. Now, if you have cracked, uneven concrete, Everlevel can fix it at a fraction of the cost compared to replacement. This is no Band-Aid. Their products are built to last. It gives your concrete the durable protection it needs, and there's still time. I chose Everlevel for my driveway, and I've got peace of mind with their long-term transferable warranty. Everlevel's products and customer service are top-notch, and that's why they've been voted Best of Omaha again this year. Say it with me. Everlevel, Everlevel, Everlevel.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
The world's on fire. Attacks in the Middle East, Ukraine and Russia at war. And right here, Joe Biden has created a dangerous threat to every American. Biden's open border policies have opened the floodgates to a record number streaming in, 12,000 in one day alone. This means increased terrorist threats and even more deadly fentanyl being delivered to our neighborhoods. President Trump will change that. He'll secure our borders by building even more wall. He'll end visitors from terrorist countries being allowed to enter. And Trump will treat the drug cartels the same as he treated terrorists who kill Americans. President Trump, the strength to protect our borders and our families.
I'm Donald Trump, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President 2024, Inc.
Progressive presents advice on new teen drivers.
You know, the hardest part about teaching your teen to drive is the chafing from the seatbelt. But the best part is the grip strength you build in your knuckles. Okay, now let's pull out of the driveway.
Here's another tip. Offset a chunk of the cost of adding a teen to your insurance with Progressive's Teen Driver Discount and get a break from the brake. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states or situations.
News Talk 1290 Coil is your home for Omaha Maverick hockey all season long. Don't miss a single puck drop, power play, barn burner, or any of the action this season. Your home for Maverick hockey, both home and away, is News Talk 1290 Coil.
And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
All right, Jamal Banks is transferred to Nebraska, committed to Nebraska today from Wake Forest. And we can talk about big-bodied wide receivers.
Another one.
Quincy Enunwa. Go. That's my favorite of late big-bodied wide receiver at Nebraska.
Just because he played bigger than he was, Stanley Morgan, just because he was 6 foot, but 6 foot but thick. Yeah, I know he's
big body.
And see, this is where I would get carried away with the 6'2 plus guys. I dropped the trio the other day that amounted to absolutely nothing in Nebraska, and that was Grimes, Neville, and Hardy. Now, all of those guys were 6'3", 6'4". They had some speed. I just remember when they were part of the recruiting class, it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And yeah, didn't really amount to much.
Spring football is going to be fun around here.
Yeah, it is.
Starts later. The spring football will be fantastic on both sides of the ball with all the competition and an older roster as well. All right, when we come back, Roll Tide. We will talk some Alabama, the legacy that Saban leaves, and what happens next as Brad Edwards will join us. Brian Edwards as well, 1620 The Zone.
More with Gary and Nick after this on 1620 The Zone. Live from the Host Coffee Studio, this is 1620 The Zone. 1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Zoom Drain Time-Saving Traffic Center. A few accidents to report. One, if you're traveling westbound on Center, just west of 120th, might run into some delays as you get close to that intersection, and another at 72nd and Dodge, and some heavier traffic I-80 eastbound between 84th and 72nd Streets, and it's still pretty slick out there as we get close to the 9 o'clock hour. Just drive with caution for the day. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody. Remember to stay safe and wear those seatbelts. I'm Peter Krenzer.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by the Nebraska Lottery.
Someone just won a beautiful new blue truck by playing Trucks and Bucks 2023. So there are only 2 trucks left. Better get to a Nebraska Lottery retailer, buy a ticket, and play today. Top prize odds, 1 in 336,000.
Make the right call. John Higgins Weather Guard, the home of the roofery.
When it's time to replace or repair storm damage, make the right call. John Higgins Weather Guard, the local, trusted, and proven choice. No one has installed more DaVinci roofs, and there's a reason why John Higgins Weather Guard is the nation's leader. Community member, community supporter. Make the right call.
John Higgins Weather Guard, the home of the roofery. Make the right call.
Don't miss this week's Zone Deal.
This week's half-off deal is Kops. Receive 2 $25 gift vouchers for just $25. Kops makes delicious pizza, fresh salads, and tasty charred wings. For the basic menu, click copspizza.com. And for the extended menu, visit them at Shadow Lake Town Center, 180th and Center, and the newly reopened 72nd and Jones locations.
Zone deals go fast. 9 a.m. Friday, 1620thezone.com.
Take your home to the next level with Level countertops, cabinets, and flooring. If you have a kitchen, bath, or closet that is completely dysfunctional, now is the time to make them functional. Level countertops, cabinets, and flooring is your expert for taking your home to the next level. The staff will listen to your needs and dreams and create a unique space specifically for you and your family. Visit the showroom at 192nd and West Maple or online at levelomaha.com. That's levelomaha.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology finds and invites. Companies might deliver a lot of hay. ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Your Omaha Maverick hockey team is coming off a tournament win at the Desert Hockey Classic, and they are red hot. The Mavs start their 2024 home campaign against the top 10 ranked Denver Pioneers January 19th and 20th. And the Maverick men's basketball team takes on North Dakota on January 11th and North Dakota State on January 13th. Let's pack the Baxter. Get your tickets now. Call the box office at 402-554-MAVS or by going to omavs.com/tickets.
KOZ and Bellevue, Omaha, Council Bluffs. This is 1620 The Zone. Now back to mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
It's the hour of the Edwards, brothers Edwards, no relation. We'll be talking to Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider here in just a moment. But the news that caught us all, maybe off guard or more into reflection mode, of Nick Saban suddenly announcing his retirement as we go to the 42-3 hotline and welcome in former ESPN college football insider and also the author of Alabama Dynasty by the Numbers, Brad Edwards. Brad, Happy New Year. We can say that because I haven't talked to you forever. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Nick. It was very surprising yesterday, and it's strange to say that with a guy who's coaching in his 70s, because most people would think, okay, it's got to be any year now, and yet there was still this sense that there was some unfinished business. When they lost to Michigan a week and a half ago, it marked the first time in Saban's career at Alabama that they went 3 seasons in a row without winning a national title. As crazy as that may seem, you just kind of felt like this is a guy who is going to go out on top. And look, I mean, there's obviously nothing shameful about going out, losing to the eventual national champion in overtime in a playoff game. But it just kind of felt like, he's going to win one more and then he's going to hang it up right off into the sunset. But that's just not the way that it turned out to go. And I think that's why a lot of us weren't really expecting it, even though maybe we should have thought there was a better chance of it than there was.
So he has been from start to finish, from the Toledo to Michigan State to LSU, we leave out the dabble with the Dolphins to Alabama. I mean, he's really, really good at the college level. But Brad, why was he so good at Alabama where it had been so bad before he got there?
Yeah, Gary, I think it was, obviously it wasn't this way from day one because you have to prove something to get to this point. But one of the things that he was able to do, and this is not just an Alabama problem by any means, it exists in a lot of big-time college football programs, is the meddling by boosters. So many people giving so much money. Everyone wants to have their say and the way this is going to go and that's going to go. And Alabama had really struggled with that post-Bryant. And Saban came in, very early, took the reins, said, this is how I'm going to do it. And it was given, a couple of years and in order to show that, his way of doing things was going to work. And of course, year two, they start off, I guess they were 11-0, 12-0, whatever it was, undefeated into the SEC championship game, ranked number 1. And I think at that point, everybody was sold, and and then from there, it just kind of became national championship every other year. And no one questioned him, and he was able to call the shots. And so I think when you have a great head coach who has a plan, he has an administration behind him. Obviously, you need the financial resources to be able to get the things done you want to do. And if you can do all that without other people, trying to intervene and throw things off course, even if that wasn't their intention, you can accomplish some things. And I think that was a big part of why he was able to do something that really had never been done before in the history of college football in an era where wouldn't have expected that anyone could do it.
And Brad, the timing is interesting. And I think one of the things that I would really tip my cap to Nick Saban, other than the obvious, is a guy who comes across as old school, and you've been around him more than any of us, but a guy who comes across as old school, very Bill Belichickian, yet with the changing climate of college football, even if it wasn't something he was overly comfortable with, he did it successfully. Is there any... Do you get any sense that as it continues to change, even to maybe a much more bigger stratosphere as far as the way the game is played and how it's managed, that maybe Nick Saban kind of saw that as an opportunity of, yeah, you know what, I made the first adjustment pretty successfully. I don't know if I can do this again.
Yeah, and look, I think he made multiple adjustments. I mean, if you look at the reason outside of the other things I just named, the reasons that he was able to succeed would be that there were changes in the game along the way, and he made those adjustments. You remember the press conference in one of his early years at Alabama when a lot of the country was starting to go to the spread, no huddle offenses, fast tempo. And he just kind of said at a press conference, like, is this what we want football to be?
Yeah.
And I think the overwhelming response from the rest of the college football world was yes. And I think there were a lot of people who also said, Nick Saban doesn't like this. We found his kryptonite. Well, what Saban did is he said, okay, if that's what we want it to be, then that's what I'm going to do. And so he changed his recruiting philosophy to build his defenses where they went from having more size to more speed to be able to cover that. And then a few years later, he switched to a different type of offense, and Lane Kiffin was a big part of ushering that in. And then obviously, behind Tua, and then Mac Jones and Bryce Young was able to go to a very prolific passing game. And so he adjusted on both sides of the ball at the same time as some of the recruiting rules changed. Yeah. Obviously, you had the change to the early signing period, and the first year that happened was signing in December. I think he underestimated the impact of it a little bit, and they had, cry Alabama a river. They had a signing class that ranked like 4th or 5th that year because he wasn't prepared for it, but he bounced back from that. But I think you're right in that the current landscape with the portal and NIL just got to a point where anyone in their 70s is going to have less energy than they had when they were in their 50s. Mm-hmm. And I think when you consider, and especially with the ability to transfer out, without having to sit out a year, and what that's been doing to everyone in college football, it's created this necessity to continue on a daily basis almost to recruit your own roster. I mean, forget everything everyone's having to do to try to find, other players elsewhere, but you've got to keep, giving this reinforcement and validation to all these guys who are playing for you already that you want to stay. And it's got to be overwhelming for all the coaches out there. And maybe it was at a point where he was at an age and had accomplished so much. It's like, you know what? I don't have to deal with this one. But I think you're right. Like, it was one more adjustment that had to be made. And I have no doubt that he could have done it, but he didn't need to do it. I think maybe he figured this is a good time to hang it up.
His last championship, the COVID year, that team I think is his best. I mean, they were absolutely dominant. But it also seemed, Brad, did you get the sense, because you've seen him in the early part, the middle part, and the ending part, and you're in an interesting spot because as a journalist, but also as an Alabama grad, I mean, you're invested in a whole different emotions. When did you see like Saban change? We went through a stretch where they were winning and it was all about Alabama and people hated Saban. Then it seemed like he got his last title and all of a sudden Saban became likable. His media presence, he was engaging. He was on game day. He was looking at the camera when he was asked questions. He wasn't as terse in those press conferences with the Coke bottles sitting on the dais.
Right.
I mean, when was there a change later in his career where we could say Nick Saban became kind of likable?
There definitely was, and I don't know if I could identify a moment or even the season when it became most evident. But yeah, I mean, you remember when they won their first national title under him at Alabama. It was obviously his second title. But it was at the Rose Bowl against Texas, and in late in the game, his players come and they dumped Gatorade on him, and one of them let the thing slip, and the bucket came kind of crashing down on his shoulder along with all of the liquid. And I don't think it was because it hurt him a great deal, but he gave this scowl and looked at him like, what are you guys doing? And then I remember after the game was over, he had said something in one of his post conferences. It may have been the next day about it. Just kind of annoying having to deal with all this wrap up because he needed to get back to the recruiting trail, and just seemed like he just was not in a position where he could appreciate success. And I still don't think he ever reached a point where he dwelled on his success or gave himself much time to think about it. But I do think that he did reach a point where he appreciated what had been built and didn't take the success for granted. And look, I think part of this, and maybe it was the 2015 team that lost to Ole Miss, and I think it was week 3. A lot of people around the country started writing the obituary of the Alabama dynasty. And they ended up running the table. They were not one of his most talented teams. That Jake Coker was the quarterback. They really rode Derrick Henry for most of that season. And I mean, obviously, he was a great. Trust me, there were still plenty of first-round picks on that team, but there was nothing about them that screamed greatness. And I think the way that team overcame that situation and ended up winning a national title, I think he just kind of had a different perspective on things after that, and that was kind of from that point forward, that he was different. One other thing I'll mention here, which I didn't say earlier about the way that he adjusted it, and this wasn't necessarily a change in the game, but you brought up the 2020 team and how great that team was and how statistically dominant they were in all these facets. And one of the amazing things about Saban was also the way that he continuously had to replace his coaching staff. He had not only position coaches who were leaving to become coordinators elsewhere, but he also had coordinators who were becoming head coaches elsewhere. And many times, like this past season was one of them, he had to replace both his offensive and defensive coordinators in the same season. And he never took a step back and just very rarely made the wrong hire. And the 2020 team, that ended up being his last national championship. His second to last was 2017. So 3 seasons later, There was not a single on-field assistant coach on that 2020 team, and I'll actually throw the strength and conditioning coach in there, who was on that 2017 staff. He had a 100% staff turnover. Outside of himself, every other assistant coach turned over between those national championships that were just 3 years apart. And that was another reason that he was able to keep it going, and just his ability to be able to identify the up-and-coming talent and who was the right coach to plug into that hole. And that's part of the reason why they didn't really drop off.
Talking with Brad Edwards. And Brad, you kind of lead us into the most, I guess not the most important, but the next important step in this entire news, and that is who's going to be the next head coach in Alabama and what Saban has built there. And with all of those coaches that you discussed and that turnover because they're going on to be head coaches at other places, there could be a guy there or two, but it sounds like if you're kind of looking at the fit, maybe a GA from 2015 and Dan Lanning could be a good fit.
Yeah.
But are you going as far as saying we're at least going to make Kirby Smart tell us no? I mean, who do you kind of see as that ideal fit?
Well, for the last couple months, I remember telling people that I thought Dan Lanning would be like a great fit when Saban leaves 2-3 years from now. The question is it too soon? Has he accomplished enough as a head coach for you to believe that he's ready for this challenge? Because it's not just that you're taking over one of the most talented rosters in the country, and that the microscope is on everything that you do, but you're also succeeding the greatest coach ever. And anyone taking that job knows what the expectations are, how high that bar has been set. And that if you don't win national championships, you're gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, just simply making the semifinals most years is not going to be enough for that next head coach to keep his job. And that's just reality of following in the footsteps of Nick Saban. So every candidate kind of has to sort through that and decide, is this something I'm willing to do? And by the way, this is one reason I don't think Steve Sarkisian is a real candidate for this spot. Even if Alabama wants him, if you're at the University of Texas and you have all those resources and you have already gotten that program to the point where they're in the college football playoff, why in the world would you leave that and go to Alabama where you could win at the same level and not be appreciated for it? I mean, if he did what it would take to be appreciated at Alabama, if he did that at Texas, he would become a legend. So yeah, certain people, I think you can just write off because it just doesn't make sense for them. Kirby Smart is another one. It would make no sense for Kirby Smart to take that job. Dan Lanning is the guy I think is Alabama's first choice. Whether it ultimately ends up being the best choice for him remains to be seen. But I think he's the first guy who's going to get the offer if he hasn't already received it.
What's your favorite Nick Saban story?
So I don't have a lot of great stories as far as I never spent a lot of time around the guy, like in the same room. But one of the times that we did interview him, Ryan Russillo and I had a sit down with him, and Russillo asked him what I thought was a great question, which was there ever a time that you made a decision in the game and you were just like immediately, man, I screwed up? Mm-hmm. It was a great question because a guy who's had so much success, you don't think about his failures. You just think about all the things that he did right. And Saban embraced the question, and he was like, yeah. And he goes into this whole thing. First quarter of the 2001 SEC championship game, Tennessee was playing for a spot in the BCS championship, just had to beat, LSU, which was like a 3-loss team out of the West. And Saban, his team's an underdog. They end up, I think it was the first drive of the game, 4th and inches on like their own 20-something yard line. All the players are like, go for it, coach. We can do it. He decides to go for it, listens to the players. They get stuffed. Tennessee, like 2 plays later, in the end zone, up 7-0. And Saban's like, man, I just blew the SEC championship. And he said the players rallied around it. Obviously, they came back to win. And he just said that was one of those moments. And then we finished the interview, and he said, he said, you guys ask a lot of good questions. He said, can you come cover our team? He's like, I'm always getting stupid questions from our writers in press conferences. And I said, Coach, in their defense, when you have to ask questions of someone every single day, you kind of run out of good ones at some point. And so I think that's what's going on. But that was my favorite Saban story, was the way that he got excited about being asked not only a good question, but a question that he'd never been asked before. And I think there might have been a couple of other good ones, but that was the one I remember, was the one Russillo asked. And it was a great story. And the fact that he wanted to talk about it, he was so eager to talk about one of his big failures.
The days of old ESPN Radio Game Day with you and Russillo and Stanford Steve, and I maybe someday we could have you on again and you could tell us your favorite Bo Pelini story.
Oh, that was an easy one.
Yeah, we've kind of heard that story. So yeah, that'll be at another time, Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Brad, awesome stuff. Hey, and again, congrats on the book. I know it's a big hit, but really appreciate you spending time and giving some thought on what was obviously huge news in the college football world.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, thanks. It's Brad Edwards. It's good stuff there. So you have to. So we can't just leave that there. But
Yeah.
you have to tell you can't.
So he was the other one there.
You can't tell you can't tell the whole story because it gets kind of dicey.
It does.
But you can give the PG version.
Yeah.
Bo Pelini and ESPN Radio Game Day.
So he mentioned Russillo.
That did not end up in the basement of a hotel in Lincoln.
No. He mentioned Ryan Russillo, and this was like the first year Russillo was not doing college radio game day. But we were fortunate through Brad to have him on my previous show a long time ago. And if you remember, we were also doing some high school scoreboard show. I get a call in the middle of it, and it's from Russillo. I'm like, why the hell is Ryan Russillo calling me on a Friday night? Well, we had just had him on the show earlier, and this was right before the Nebraska-Miami game in Lincoln. And so Ryan had apologized for maybe sounding sort of harsh towards his thoughts on Bo. And what Ryan said on the show was nothing more critical than what we had all discussed. And that was, can Bo finally get that signature win? Can he finally get this team over the hump? The 9 wins, the 10 wins, great, but you got to get that one of substance. And that's pretty much what he was saying going into what ended up being his last year. And so with a big game coming to Lincoln, it was appropriate that, Russillo had brought that up. And so I go off to the side while we're on the air, and I take the phone call, and he tells me he's apologizing. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're good, man. You didn't say anything that was out of bounds. And then he just unloaded on me and said, are you going to be down there tomorrow? I said, yeah, and we're helping out with College Radio Game Day. And he said, go talk to Stanford Steve, go talk to Brad about what happened. And he told me what had happened. Well, the PG version is Bo was coming back from a luncheon. They had a scheduled interview for College Radio Game Day. And so Brad and Steve would go and kind of conduct the interview along the way. And anybody who knows Brad Edwards, one of the nicest dudes. Like you're not setting Brad Edwards in to do a hatchet job.
Yeah.
And so he asked a question about, and I can't remember exactly what the question, how it was framed, but it sort of had an SEC component to it. And apparently that triggered Bo. And he said, well, big surprise, ESPN asking the SEC question. That's what you guys are all about. And he just kind of got very combative, as sometimes Bo would, if he didn't like.
Was this being recorded? Like this is part of the interview?
Yeah, this was part of the interview. And so they ended up having to cut the interview short, and it got a little confrontational there towards the end as they were leaving. There were some words exchanged between Stanford Steve and Brad. And again, if you know and have seen Brad is the least confrontational guy. But if you know and seen Stanford Steve, it's a different story. And Russillo was giving me Stanford Steve's background about, this guy used to be a bookie. You're not messing with this dude. And so there was a heated exchange between the two, because I think Brad was just being the peacemaker, and Stanford Steve and Bo were getting pretty heated. And so I went the next day and I asked Brad about it, and Brad in his normal fashion of, well, I think we just kind of caught him on a bad day. And then Steve stepped in and said, oh, let me tell you what happened. And it could have been like any different tone. But that was one that I will take with me for a long time as far as the details. And you're right, there are certain things about it. It's like, probably can't overly share, but that because I've told you about it before. Yeah. And so the funniest thing about it is, though, and Russillo said the same thing. He goes, like, it was like the guy thought we were trying to like corner him and get him, like to basically do a hatchet piece on him. He goes, you think Brad Edwards is the guy we're sending in to do a freaking hatchet piece? And of course, I'm cleaning up Russillo's language too. He was pretty fired up, and they were not fans of Bo from that point on. I think Brad always was pretty cordial and tried to be, but I know Stanford Steve and Russillo were not fans after that moment.
I wonder, we've been a couple of years now where Bo has not been in the game of football coaching.
Yeah. It's kind of surprising, actually.
I wonder if he's done.
As you start getting further removed from Youngstown and where his name even there towards the end would pop up for some other DC jobs, but nothing's come of it. I kind of wonder the same thing, because you would think by now you would probably at least hear something of, getting that itch. I mean, he's still a pretty young guy that you would think.
Is he early 50s now?
Yeah. That I would think if there's still that desire, then there would still be a lot of opportunities for him, at least as a DC, if not
job
again coaching.
Well, even going back to the NFL.
Yeah, very true.
He was with the Packers
Green Bay,
before he took the Nebraska job, defensive coordinator job at Nebraska.
Yep.
But his name doesn't come up anywhere. Now, I don't expect him ever to be a head coach, but his name, DC for a college job, not even. The thing, if Oregon opens up and whatever happens at Oregon, I mean, we're now into the second cycle, really probably the first true cycle of Scott Frost, of, his name hasn't been brought up at all.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even hear a reporter throwing out, well, this would probably be names. The only one was closest was we were trying to connect the dots over in Iowa City, where there might have been like just a little mutual interest. But I wonder, I don't know Bo well enough to like text him, but I wonder if he's done just coaching college football.
Yeah.
Financially, he's in a good spot.
Oh, yeah.
His kids are, his kids, I think, are out of the house now.
Just enjoying some free time with his wife. And, it wouldn't even shock me if all of a sudden he like decided to help out a high school, I don't think
you have thoughts on football. You can share them.
I don't think you ever get away from that. And if there's anything we could say about Bo, the dude was passionate about not only the sport, but especially the defensive side of the football.
Yeah. Compton. So when Compton was back for the Michigan game, Bo's name came up because he said one of the funnest Bussin' with the Boys podcast I had was when Bo was there.
Yeah.
He said it was great because he said the stuff that was off the air, sharing stories about at Nebraska and, players and administrators and all the stuff they went through, he said was great because it was like walk down memory lane. And, Will loves Bo. But even Will was like, I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I just, he's financially he's in a good spot, but he goes, I don't know if he has a desire to coach again, but he's been out for a bit now, a lot longer than I thought. And, once you're out for a while and it hadn't gone so well, his last go around at LSU was just atrocious with that defense.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't get back in, but he's still young. I thought maybe the NFL would be a spot for him.
Yeah, and I almost,
you can go in the NFL, you don't recruit,
yeah,
you can kind of hide, you just coach football.
Yeah, you're not under the
that's
microscope.
all you do, and you just coach football all day.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no BS. I'm in there, I'm coaching football. I got my guys that are getting paid, that are sitting in front of me. I relate to them, blah, blah, blah. We can do this, this, and this. Be a defensive back coach, analyst, whatever.
Yeah, I would have thought the LSU thing would kind of left a bad taste in his mouth. If that's like kind of where you're leaving the college game.
Ask Chris from Baton Rouge, who interacts with the program, what kind of taste it left in his mouth. They ran Bo out, but that was that was the awkward COVID year. That defense, man, couldn't stop me.
They weren't good.
Brian Edwards coming up, no relation. Coming up here in a little bit. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone.
More with Gary and Nick after this on 1620 The Zone. Your Omaha area forecast from the Godfather's Pizza Weather Center and KETV Newswatch 7 on 1620 The Zone.
Dry for most of Thursday with partly to mostly cloudy skies, highs around 20. Winter storm warning goes into effect late in the day with snow moving in mainly after 6 p.m. in the Omaha metro. Snow continues overnight, heavy at times, and will still linger into Friday morning. Expect storm totals around 4 to 7 inches in the Omaha metro with wind chills 10 to 15 below zero Friday. I'm meteorologist Sean Everson from KETV Newswatch 7.
Brent Rasmussen of Mortgage Specialists.
Here's a fact that doesn't seem to get mentioned enough. Owning a home actually helps you build personal wealth. Homeownership is a huge factor in building personal wealth. There are some naysayers who say it's too expensive, but rates will come down, and when they do, the competition is going to be fierce. One financial statistic shows that the net worth of those that own a home is 40 times greater than those that rent. So maybe take a few minutes to call me at Mortgage Specialists to go through the reasons why, even though the current market is different, why it's always a good time to buy a home to build your net worth. I'm Brent Rasmussen. Call me at Mortgage Specialists and we can show you all the details. Mortgage Specialists. Driven, trusted, reliable.
Click mtg-specialists.com. NMLS number 5918, Equal Housing Lender.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
The Beatles come to life in Revolution, the music of the Beatles, a symphonic experience featuring the Omaha Symphony, January 20th and 21st at the Holland Center. Accompanied by hundreds of rare and unseen photos with stunning video and animation, Revolution takes audiences on a magical musical and visual journey with top performers and vocalists and the music you know and love. Tickets start at $20. Visit omahasymphony.org to get your tickets today before Revolution, the music of the Beatles, a symphonic experience, sells out.
42 Degrees wants to start your year off right with hot deals on our best-selling premium e-juices from Aqua and Monster starting at $14.99. We have a large selection of disposables including Elf Bars, Tyson's, Flawless, and Rodman's starting at the low price of $9.99 with flavors like Cool Mint, Peach Berry, and Mad Blue. With 10 metro locations, the most knowledgeable, friendly, and professional staff. Why shop anywhere else? 42 Degrees. Buy your mom's
Restrictions
house.
apply. Products may contain nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
It hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I never smoked a cigarette. How in the hell did I get lung cancer?
I don't smoke. I've never smoked. So I started Googling. One word just kept coming up, like it was in bold and red, and it was radon.
Radon is the number 2 cause of lung cancer.
Well, you don't know if it's in your home. You got to test. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it.
What's your level? Radon Defense Midwest can help. Visit radonradio.com for a special offer. That's radonradio.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit, hims.com/radio.
Take your home to the next level with Level countertops, cabinets, and flooring. If you have a kitchen, bath, or closet that is completely dysfunctional, now is the time to make them functional. Level countertops, cabinets, and flooring is your expert for taking your home to the next level. The staff will listen to your needs and dreams and create a unique space specifically for you and your family. Visit the showroom at 192nd and West Maple or online at levelomaha.com. That's levelomaha.com.
And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
This shows you major college football. There is so much that goes into it. You got to have the tools in the toolbox, man, to be able to handle the beast of programs that the expectations are through the roof. Man, you got to have some good DNA to be handled, to handle everything that goes with it.
Oh, yeah.
But see, your little story about Bo, Scott was the same way, is you have to have that person that takes all that off your plate, like all the stuff that is non-X's and O's.
Yeah.
That okay, so the administration doesn't like you. And so your response is, I'm going to park in a spot where I'm not supposed to, and the guy that has a statue outside the building is going to have to tell Bo, you can't park there. That's in the loading dock.
Right.
You know, I mean, just those kind of things of where the football coach shouldn't have to worry
you're
about
not insulated.
anything but except football.
Right.
You know, Rule is a little bit. He's been around the block. He is handling that better because he has people around him to handle it.
Yes.
And then also, you know, I think he's a micromanager, but not to the extent that he just suffocates the program. It's just like look at Saban. Brad Edwards made a great point. You have to get rid of the people that their interest isn't your interest that are in the program. You know, like the boosters. But there's so many people that want a piece of the pie, and there's so much that goes on, and you end up being concerned about so many things that have nothing to do with the job that you were hired to do.
Yep.
And that is to coach football, win football, develop young men on and off the field. And the next thing you're worried about is a damn parking spot underneath the stadium, which was one of the things that Bo had. He would continue. He didn't want to park out front where people could see him come in.
Yeah.
So he parked in the loading dock. T.O. said, hey, you know, they use that. We got workers coming in. Can you not park there?
It's actually a thing.
They fought about it for weeks. Finally got it resolved. I mean, but that little stuff like that.
Right.
Scott got consumed by little stuff like that.
Yep.
I just Rule initially was not consumed by it, but like there's a lot of stuff, a lot of things here about this program. There's a lot of attention. There are a lot of things that go on.
Issues.
But he didn't let it overwhelm him.
Right.
Because he has good hires that they take care of that stuff if it needs to be taken care of, or he doesn't let it bother him because he's secure and he just moves on to the next thing.
Absolutely. And I think about the hires who hired them too. I mean, you mentioned, T.O., maybe he provided a little bit of insulation for Bo from that standpoint, but then once T.O. gave up the post and in comes Sean Eichhorst, that wasn't Sean Eichhorst hired. That was a horrible pairing between the two. Sean Eichhorst, who was never really visible, and, Bo, who's, he's just kind of that way where he needs to kind of see you around. He needs to get your respect. And if you're going to, you need to be around Bo a little bit more from what I gathered. And if you are, then he'll eventually start to respect you a little bit. And I think of Scott, Bill Moose was his biggest cheerleader, but Bill Moose, what did he really do as far as insulating Scott? And then Trev comes and Trev's more of a savvy type of businessman. Yeah, he was a former player. He wants to support the guy, even though he didn't hire, but he's also going to go about it a much different way than what Bill Moose did. And then Trev's hires Matt Rule, and Matt Rule plays the game too. Matt plays the game very well.
Yeah. Well, he also has been around the block. So that also helps out.
Right.
Because maybe
that's true. That's very true.
Maybe at Temple, he was consumed by all that stuff and he learned his lesson.
Maybe.
Or at Carolina, he was consumed by all that stuff.
I think Carolina maybe had that type of impact as well.
All right. Brian Edwards, he has an impact on your bank account, we think. He also is very excited as a Gator fan today. He joins us next.
Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com with Gary Sharp and Nick Handley.
My passion for the unborn comes from my own unplanned pregnancy. Dan and I have been together for over 45 years. We have 3 of the most beautiful children. My name is Marlis Patma. I'm the former president of Iowa Right to Life, and I'm supporting Nikki Haley for president. I've heard Nikki's story. She speaks with such clarity about the importance of life because for her, it's personal.
I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children.
Nikki's a sister in Christ. She's pro-life. She has compassion and strength. I want a president with moral clarity who can restore our country, our pride, and our purpose. For my children and yours, please support Nikki Haley for president.
I'm Nikki Haley, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Nikki Haley for president.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. hims.com/radio.
Hi, everybody. Kent Pavelka here with why I chose Everlevel Concrete Repair for my driveway. They do it all. They fix cracks, lift sunken slabs, protect the finished product from deterioration, and all at a fraction of the price of replacement. It's not a Band-Aid like other repair methods. Everlevel's products are designed to last, which is why they've been voted Best of Omaha again this year. Better yet, it all comes with a transferable warranty. Protect your concrete before winter. Call Everlevel today for your free inspection. Everlevel, they make your driveway Everlevel. Level up.
Your Omaha Maverick hockey team is coming off a tournament win at the Desert Hockey Classic, and they are red hot. The Mavs start their 2024 home campaign against the top 10 ranked Denver Pioneers January 19th and 20th. And the Maverick men's basketball team takes on North Dakota on January 11th and North Dakota State on January 13th. Let's pack the Baxter. Get your tickets now. Call the box office at 402-554-MAVS or by going to omavs.com/tics.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babel. Babel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babel doesn't take long.
And with Babel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
Start learning a new language today. Go to Babel.com. That's Babel.com. Babel.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
And we're back. Mornings with Sharp and Handley. Here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
All right, we believe that Brian Edwards is having a little phone issue, so we will reschedule him for tomorrow. Maybe Alabama will have a head football coach by then. Greg Byrne was pretty upfront. He went to social media and said, this is what we're looking for as a head coach. But don't make the mistake that Pat Hayden made. He lost Pete Carroll to the NFL, and USC got lost for a while.
This is huge.
But good ADs have that list in the top drawer.
Yeah.
I couldn't, when Bill Byrne told me that story, I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, for every coach, I have a list of the coaches that I have vetted on my own. I've watched them from afar because he said, my coach could go outside and get hit by a bus. Then what do? I got to hire a coach. He goes, I have a list. He goes, I really have a list that is in my top drawer of my next football coach. And the only name that he would tell me was Mac Brown. Now, years later, I think Bob Stoops was on that list to replace T.O.
Yeah. Interesting.
I've heard that too from admins and athletics where, they keep always in their top drawer because you never know what could happen.
You should.
Especially now.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, especially this is a perfect example of why you need to at least have a pretty solid idea because of the real threat of having your roster deconstructed, because these guys have a chance if that thing drags on and they're unsure about their future and that window is starting to close, they got to go on their gut of, okay, what do I feel? What am I going to do?
Like the AD at Oregon. Let's say it's Dan Lanning.
Yeah.
Okay. Oregon is making the transition to the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
They went from Chip, and they have kind of slid, again, all about our discussion earlier in the show, of one decision can make up for some bad decisions. But you had Chip Kelly. He left.
You had Helfrich.
And then you looked and you said, okay, we have an internal guy. Alabama doesn't have an internal candidate.
Right.
So, but then look at after Helfrich.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone Willingham. Or not Tyrone Willingham. Willie Taggart. Odd fit.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Mario. Okay. Mario can recruit. Mario can't win you a big game.
Yep.
And then you found Dan Lanning, who was perfect. Lanning is 22-5 in 2 years, loves to recruit, loves the portal, loves the Oregon brand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But now you're going into the Big Ten, where you have a pretty good roster. The expectations are huge in Eugene. You don't think the AD there, and he's a good athletic director, he doesn't already have that list? He had that list before Saban decided to retire? Because I would think he's probably in the back of his head going, man, if Saban one day retires, my guy, maybe not the first go around, but the second go around is going to be a prime candidate to go back to the SEC.
And again,
so I got my list.
And remember the conversation, it died down a bit towards college football playoff time. I remember after Michigan had beat Alabama, there was a little bit of talk about it, but it sort of died down and it was sort of spotty throughout the season. But again, this is where I look to the athletic directors that are worth their salt. You are in tune to all of that, especially if it can affect yours. I mean, absolutely 100%. You're in tune to that. And you're in tune to, it's kind of like chess, the next move ahead. So if there is a job down the road that opens up that someone takes, and all of a sudden it opens up a spot at your current coach's alma mater or anything like that, you've got to be prepared. Any athletic director that doesn't at least have an idea, I'm sorry, you're not doing your job. You are flat out not, you're ill prepared.
You don't think? I will tell you, you never know what Mac's going to do. Mac's a popular guy for other athletic directors, or Mac just says, you know what, I'm ready to retire.
Yep.
I got to imagine Marcus Blossom has a list.
Yeah.
Has a list, because what happens if this hiring cycle in the offseason, there's a job that piques Mac's interest and he's like, you know what, I'm toward the end. I'm going to do one more. Or he just says, you know what, I'm ready to hand it over. Yeah. Good athletic directors have that list, and they're always ready because they're always watching.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to go through this eventually here with a GOAT of John Cook.
Yep.
You think Trev has the list, or does John have the list? Now that's a
good question.
A better discussion.
And it's a good question too.
All right. Tomorrow we got lots of basketball to look forward to. We'll talk about Omaha, North Dakota. They're playing tonight. You can't make it to Baxter. If you want to stay inside because of snow, I will entertain you on 1290 or the Summit League Television Network.
We'll nestle up by the fire
for tomorrow, by the way.
We will have lots of basketball discussion tomorrow and more as Jamal Banks commits to Nebraska. Not bad in the portal. Will Nebraska get another guy today? Stephon Thompson, the linebacker from Syracuse, could be next up. We will see. We'll do all that on Friday. But enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Be safe. Later today, they're not kidding. There's going to be blizzard conditions.
Yay.
So we may have an interesting show for you tomorrow on where we're all located. But we will be here tomorrow at 6. For Jimmy, for Nick, I'm Gary. Crossovers next.